Hello and welcome to another episode of the Day One Patch Podcast. I'm your temporary host, Matt Lawrence, and I'm joined again by my co-host, esteemed guest even, esteemed co-host, whatever you want to be called. Tim Spence, how's it going?
I don't know. Am I still a guest at this point after being on for like hundreds of episodes?
I don't know what you call, like, even if, like, let's just say Ryan's like, I don't want to be host anymore. Are we, like, does he become a guest? Like, what is he, you know what I'm trying to say? It's like, what are the people that aren't the main host or intro person? You know what I'm trying to say?
You gotta have a ship runner. You gotta have the person at the wheel driving the car, right? Someone's got to push things along. Someone's got to be the forward momentum of the show.
Yeah.
So of course the dynamic does change when that person is like away or whatever. I would imagine if Ryan just suddenly decided for whatever reason that he didn't want to host the show anymore, that the host role would go to you.
But then does he become a guest? Like, guest seems like you're too far removed. Like, you're right. Like, you've been here for a long time. It's like, that feels like it's too far removed.
He's a supporting cast member.
I like that. I'll use that. Because I use co-host on my work podcast. And it's like, we're not really co-hosts, though. Like, we kind of are. Like, it doesn't sound like it's like a jarring, like, that guy's not a co-host. But it's also kind of like, we're both not co-hosts. Like,
I think you can have two hosts.
Yeah.
Well, I guess the dynamic of the show. Like it depends what you're going for. Like if you have two people that are both good at driving the content forward, then I would say that those are both like primary hosts. Probably, maybe some people would just refer to that as co-hosts, but I don't know. I guess in my mind, like a co-host is kind of like an assistant manager. You know, it's like they're not quite the same level, but they also do have some of the same responsibilities. And they get to delegate more. I don't know. But for our purposes, we're just all kind of, I think it depends on the episode actually, because sometimes you kind of take more of a primary lead, and then sometimes Ryan takes more of a primary lead. And some episodes that I'm on, I yap a lot, and other times I don't add too much, and I think it just depends on the individual show.
You used to have like your own segment too, right? Didn't you do like trailer of the week for a while?
That was only like twice. We didn't really flesh that out.
I thought that was like a couple of months. Like
the trailer, I think I only ever did like 2 or 3 trailer breakdowns. Yeah, but
is there even a trailer every week, like reliably? Like I guess,
probably. Yeah. You go to IGN, they upload like 10 goddamn videos a day,
and it kind of seems like AA is kind of back-ish because we have like some games that are just getting like they're not being leaked or anything, and then they just sort of like, hey, this is coming out in a few months. Like Mind's Eye and other things, and like that feels more, I don't know, looks AAA, but is it AA? Like, who knows? Games are starting to look so good now that who knows what the situation is.
Unreal Engine 5, baby.
Pretty much. Actually, that's going to be a topic of this of our Query Corner question.
A
little
bit. Segue.
A little bit. Well, actually, we're going to segue into video game fun facts because it's also related. I'm not going to say what the Query Corner question is until we get there. But I've like tied them all in, so it's going to be a bit of a shorter video game fun fact, I think, just because it's like kind of a rundown, and then it's going to kind of lead into that Query Corner question, which will be more toward the end before what we're playing. So, video game fun fact.
Hit me with it.
What's that?
Hit me with it.
We need a jingle. I think we need like a something better than that.
Video game fun facts about video games with Matt.
Well, thank you. This video game fun fact with Matt is brought to you by
a Braxo cleaner.
Man, I had an idea where I wanted to like practice some of my like web development work, which is what I do for my job. And I was like, how cool would it be to like go through various games such as like the streets of the Division and find random businesses that they have on the edge, like just the sides, like random bars or whatever, and make little websites for them. And use like the game's screenshots as like, you know, the marketing image and like the sales and stuff, because they'll put like sales posters in the window and things, and like have like coupon codes, shit like that for like various.
I wonder if that starts to encroach on like copyright though.
I was a little worried about that. That's why I didn't end up doing it. I just kind of practiced on other stuff, but
I think at the very most you'd probably just get like a cease and desist because you're not making any money off it. You're just doing it as like a fun little thing. It's like a fan project.
Yeah,
you can probably argue that it's like fan art, maybe.
You wouldn't mistake it for like, it's not like if I did that for Division 2, it's not like you're like, is this Division 2 or is the shooting game Division 2?
Yeah.
there's going to be no.
Well, yeah, and it's also like, I guess it depends on the IP as well. But if you were doing an ad for like, a Braxo cleaner in like the proper like nuclear family style era aesthetic from Fallout, like I feel like people would know it's not a real product. They like would understand that it's a Fallout reference.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Because we used to do Insta-Heat like that as well from LNR.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. I mean, you know what they say, you can make things as idiot-proof as possible, but they're always going to make another idiot, so.
I'll make that my the thing I put on all the websites, various footers. Just in the fine print, like in the terms of service.
This website's calling me an idiot. All right, what's the fun fact?
Yes, that's correct. So the fun fact this week is going to be all about Far Cry 2.
Okay.
So Far Cry 2 might be one of the most immersive games that you forgot about. So released back in 2008, Far Cry 2 didn't just drop you into an open world. It threw you into like a really, really like realistic, pretty gritty, not, what would you even call it? Like fantastical action movie that we have, which is Far Cry today, like Far Cry 3, 4, 5, 6, and then there was another one I think in between. There's like a couple of them, but anyway, it's not like this like fantastical action movie. Far Cry 2 is like actually like really gritty, and has a lot of realistic systems that were kind of just, I mean, not that I like went and researched each game, but kind of like either forgotten or no one talks about anymore. So I mean, I'll get to it. I have a list here. There was a proper dynamic fire system in Far Cry 2. It isn't just a visual effect in the game. It's actually like a system that will spread based on wind direction, humidity, and terrain. You can start like a brush fire, for example, to ambush enemies. But if you're not careful, it can actually spiral out of control and engulf you as well. I remember doing this in the game and actually like doing that where I would like, go, let's say the outpost is to the north. I would go to the east and like run over to the east, burn, like set something ablaze. Then I'd run over to the west and wait for the flames to sort of like get the NPCs' attention because they're all like, what's going on over there? So they'd all go running, but then I would run into the outpost only to realize that it's out of control and they're not really even shooting at me. Everyone's just running around on fire, including me. Big disaster. I friggin' sucked at that game. On top of that, there was also weapon jamming and decay. So guns would degrade over time. So for example, you went and you killed a guy and you picked up his weapon. Let's say it was a rusty AK-47. It might jam or misfire mid-fight. You kept actually using it. It would actually break apart, like actually blow apart due to malfunction, due to degrading. And then it would, no longer function. You have to get another one. Another thing, though, is that, and I remember this from the original sort of trailer or show off, was that if you spent a lot of time in an area that made your weapon like constantly like wet. So if you were in like a swamp or if you were literally swimming, your weapon would actually degrade much faster. Now, this was kind of combated, not in weapon repair, but this was combated by you would earn diamonds, that's the currency, and then you would go and like pay for, let's say, like an M16, and then you could just constantly claim a new M16 from the shop. So you could do that. But I mean, it kind of sucked because there were Easter eggs. There were gold AKs hidden throughout the map, but they weren't immune. They were like highly, like they had a very high durability level, but it didn't. It wasn't
still
invincible
degraded.
forever.
It was just more slow. Yeah.
Yeah, like I never actually degraded mine fully, but because I felt bad using it, so I just kept using like a shitty sniper rifle. But
yeah, there was a lot in that game that got overshadowed by the meme of it just being like, "Oh, malaria simulator." Then people, found that particular mechanic to be really annoying and frustrating to play. But it was one of those things where, like, the further you go into the game, the much more manageable that mechanic becomes, and it's like, it's kind of the point, right? They want you to feel a bit overwhelmed and annoyed in the beginning so that when it becomes manageable later, you're like, oh my God, this is like, I've progressed. Like, it's so much more, it's just easier to play now.
Well, I remember too, like, that's one of my points here. So I'll just jump right to that. Like, so just for the listener, you're infected with malaria very early in the game and you need to take like pills regularly. But you don't just get like an endless pill bottle like you would see in many games today where it's just like, oh, just hit the button and you'll take a pill or whatever. It's like, yeah, you like hit the button, take a pill, but you hit the button, take a pill, and it's going to like take a pill away. And there's only, 5 pills, 2 pills, 10 pills in this thing. And so then it's like, hey, you got to go to a contact, they can hook you up with more drugs. But usually they'll tell you have to do a mission. And there's like this like overall tension with the system because you're constantly being like, man, I'm gonna have like a malaria attack. So it's like you kind of like get taken out of like I want to say like an out of body experience, but kind of an out of player experience where your guy's kind of like shell shocked a bit. He's being affected by the malaria, and you can actually pass out mid mission if I remember correctly. So like the attacks get worse and worse until like it's like really bad if you leave it. Like it's not something where it's just like, well, there's an attack every 30 minutes. I'll just deal with it. It's like, no, it's gonna get worse. I don't know if it would ever kill you. I never pushed it to that degree, but funny enough, the malaria system is the reason why I stopped playing this game, because I was doing a mission for over an hour and I was driving to the end of the mission just to finish it, of which then it saves after you finish it. And I had a malaria attack while driving on the edge of a cliff. And I was like, kind of like an IRT deadliest road. I was driving down this like shitty, this like shitty path basically along the side of a cliff. And because I had a malaria attack, I couldn't control the vehicle and I went right off the edge, crashed into a fiery explosion, died. And it was like, yeah, just restart the mission. And I was like, nah, okay. So that was that. But other realistic things in this game include an in-world like actual map navigation. So you could actually like pull out like a paper map. There was no like, hey, I'll pause for a quick sec, I'll look at a full screen map. It's like, no, you have to look down at a paper map. Some vehicles did come with like an actual little GPS module, so you could look at that as you were driving. And the vehicles themselves were actually real vehicles in many cases. So like there were various models of Jeep that were properly branded as Jeep, for example. And then there were some other trucks, which I think were just regular kind of like, this is a technical or whatever they are, like Jeeps with guns on the back and those type of things. There were also brutal healing animations. So you did get little like,
oh yeah, like
morphine, whatever shooters where it's kind of like a stim pack. However, if you like were in like a fire, as we already mentioned, you would have to like pat yourself out if you got down to the lowest health bar and you ran out of those stim packs. You'd have to like pat yourself out. If a big explosion had happened near like a vehicle, you might get like a big piece of metal up your arm. And
metal or glass shrapnel, yeah.
Yeah, the shrapnel. Yep. Getting shot, maybe you get like shot in the hand. You have to like push it through the back of your thumb, and then you have to like, or the bottom or the base of your thumb, I guess. Yeah,
he'd pull out like a little knife and he'd like pick fucking bullet casings out of his arms and stuff. Yeah,
is pretty gross,
casings, but yeah, it's gross.
Cauterized wounds as well, and snap dislocated fingers back into place.
Oh,
awful.
I need Far Cry 2 ASMR bone snapping videos on YouTube.
Oh,
lo-fi beats to snap your fingers back into place too.
Could you imagine falling asleep to that, but it's like on the main TV, like in your living room?
So someone just comes into the living room and it's just like ambient sounds of the jungle in Far Cry 2, and then you just hear
and you're just like snoozing away, like it's the thing that knocked you out.
There's just nothing like it. Oh, it's so relaxing.
On top of all of this, there was also pretty smart for the time. This is the 360 era enemy AI as well. So enemies don't just stand around; they'll try to flank. They'll use vehicles to chase you down. They'll throw Molotovs to flush you out. They'll call backup. They'll call, if there's a mortar available in their base, they'll call mortars on you. And they'll try to like zero you in. And it's smart in that it's also like, if you actually like properly hide and move, let's say you're getting mortared in the east and you head over to the northern direction, they'll keep mortaring the east because they'll think you're there. So it's kind of cool that way. Another cool thing too with smart enemy AI, I remember, is I used to use a sniper, and you wouldn't always get a headshot, obviously. So you would oftentimes kill the person, but sometimes you wouldn't, and they would be wounded. And what I found on several occasions, what I would snipe out a couple of people, let's say on the side of the base that I wanted to infiltrate, and then they would drop. So I'm like, okay, they're dead. So then I would sneak in, and then they would actually shoot me in the back with a pistol. And what they've done is they're wounded, and they've crawled themselves into a corner, and they've like propped themselves up against like a size of a wall or a metal thing or something. And they're waiting for me to creep into the base, and then they'll pull out a pistol and shoot me, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah.
We mentioned weapon damage, vehicles, very similar thing. Cars and boats can take realistic damage and stall out. You actually have to hop out of the thing. There's no like click a button to repair like in Battlefield 1. You have to hop out and manually fix the engine. So that's a thing. There is no fast travel. You got to use that map, and you've got to walk or drive around. There is sort of like a lore friendly, I guess you could say, fast travel system, if memory serves, with like a basic bus system. And also there was a realistic real-time day and night cycle. And this actually let you choose different tactics. You could say, I'm going to go to sleep in my safe house because it's the morning. I'm going to sleep until the nighttime. And then I'm going to come back at night. Maybe there'll be less like people in the base. Maybe I'll be able to sneak in better because there'll be less guards around. There's more darkness, kind of things like that. And the final one, and this one's kind of weird. Like this one's weird, but it stands out to me about Far Cry 2, is the buddy system. So the buddy system kind of exists in other games too. Like you can call in like Herc and stuff like that. Like you kind of make friends with the people on the map. But in this game, it was like there were other sort of mercenaries that you can befriend. And they'll like sometimes call you when they're in trouble. I found that they used to call a lot at the end of missions and stuff. But they would call and be like, I'm in trouble. And you have to rush out there. And if you don't rush out there, like they'll get downed and they may die. And what's really scary is you can use your sort of like stim packs, which were not super plentiful, to try to help them. So like you would like, roll up on the scene after they call for help. It's a big firefight. You kind of like clear out the enemies. You run over to your buddy. They're on the ground. And it's not like another game where you click a button and you like stim pack them in their back. That can happen, but sometimes you have to use multiple stim packs. So I've like been over top of somebody and been like stim pack, stim pack, stim pack, and they still die. And when they're dead, they're dead. So that like relationship you've built up with them, everything, they're dead. But they can also save you, which is super cool. They've pulled me out of like, burning areas. They've taken me out of areas that are being mortared when I've been like stunned or knocked down by the mortars. So it's kind of this game was, dare I say, a far cry from the Far Cry that we know today.
Whoa.
Because obviously like now it's more, arcadey, it's more fun. It's more of an action movie. And I mean, some people begrudgingly, or some people love that. Obviously this series has seen quite a lot of success, but some people like still bemoan the days of the true gritty realism. I think this game was too realistic for me a little bit. The malaria car accident, I'm going to call it, that I've already described was the thing that broke the camel's back, and I never returned and may never return. Did you beat Far Cry 2, Tim?
I never had it. It was one of those games that I played every once in a while at a friend's place. The one thing that I do remember being awesome about Far Cry 2 was the map maker. There was a multiplayer feature that you could do map editing that was mostly designed to be like, group of players on team A versus players on team B, and it was just like kind of deathmatchy kind of stuff. But you could make custom maps, and I just remember being at a friend's place, and the servers were not super populated at the time because it was kind of like, it wasn't the skill based easy lobby finding matchmaking technology that we have today. It would go online and you would sit in a lobby for 10-15 minutes hoping it would fill up kind of thing. So people would get bored fairly quickly trying to do that. And I remember my friend and we would just like download the maps and just run around in them in single player. And the one that I remember somebody had made was the Battle for Hoth from Star Wars episode, was it 5? It was crazy. Like they'd use the custom assets to make, or the assets to make like the AT-ATs and stuff, walking around. And they had like, of course things weren't, they didn't make custom vehicles and stuff. So you didn't have the snow speeders like, usable or anything, but they had them. It was basically like you were in a snapshot of the war. And what was clever was you couldn't, because you're, the map maker, the game takes place in, an African, non-existent African country, I think. So a lot of it is like sand and dirt is what you're allowed to use, like for assets in the game. But they were clever in that they found if you used a certain sand texture, but you made the map a nighttime map, the sand kind of looked like snow in the moonlight. So I just remember having this nighttime map where you were kind of ripping around in this Star Wars, almost like snapshot of a moment where you're running around, and it's just supposed to be like a deathmatch map, but it was super cool. And it was just one of those, it was at that time for me where so many games were starting to give the players a lot of creative freedom within the game itself, kind of giving them a toolkit that they could use to make their own content, and it's such a common feature in gaming now, but at the time it was super novel, and a lot of companies put a lot of effort into it to make it like a cool user experience. And it's just funny because I look at something like Far Cry 2 where it seemed fairly robust for a map maker, and like to this day I've never seen anybody else ever talk about it.
Funny enough, like when you mention it, I kind of forgot about it, but I do remember playing a lot of the Jeep or vehicle obstacle course maps.
Yeah,
people would just make those, or like races, things like that.
Yep.
And like that was a lot of fun, where you'd like bounce off of like floating shipping crates and things like that, where they would, kind of like jank them in the sky, and you're like kind of trying to hop your wheels over them. That stuff.
Yeah, it's the same as like fun. Forge and Halo, right? Like people would you give people a certain tool set that you think they're only going to be able to use to like do one thing, and they somehow make it into this other thing too, like all those custom games made in the Warcraft 3 map editor.
I did a thing too with a buddy in person where we were trying to make maps that looked normal but had like a secret. So I remember I made for me, what I did was I made a map that was like very sort of standard. So it's just sort of like a winding river that cuts the map in half, and there's two sides, some trenches, some gun emplacements, and it's like, fight in this like a little bit of jungle, but mostly kind of like a desert environment with the river there. But what I did on the one side to stack the one team was, in the background it looked like mountains, but they were paper thin, and so you couldn't they just looked like they were in the background,
right? Yeah.
But then I made this alleyway behind them, and I had a whole like set of vehicles back there, and I think I made it like there's like one spawn point back there, so if you died you would like have a chance of spawning back there. And there were like vehicles, guns, RPGs, everything. And then a road that would like lead you down into the trench system, so you could like use all this ordnance against the other team.
It's right in the middle of the fray, yeah.
Yeah. But again, like you're right, like none of that stuff really took off. Like a few maps maybe like did well, like popular, like the Hoth one and stuff like that. But it was like the internet wasn't as robust. And so like the discovery wasn't there. So like no one was like, yeah, I remember Matt Lawrence's like mountain facade.
Yeah. It was all just like rating systems back then.
Yeah.
Thumbs up. That's all you get for your map.
Pretty good though. Like, I mean, I know Far Cry 3 had a map editor, and then I don't know if there was one in 5 or 6, but I certainly didn't touch it if there was one. But there is like co-op maps in one of them, which you can make, and you do like co-op missions, which is kind of cool.
Huh.
But that's it. That's it for the gaming fun fact of the week. And into the top stories. Top story, of course, this week is going to be Nintendo Direct, March 2025. Tim, I'm going to hand this off to you because you actually watched this thing, and please, sir, take it away.
Yeah, I mean, so like Cole's Notes version is there wasn't a ton of major announcements. It definitely feels like the last Direct that they're going to do that is focusing on Nintendo Switch 1 stuff. From this point on, because of course they are doing another Switch Direct on April the 4th, I believe, is going to be the first Switch 2 Direct specifically. So that's pretty soon. So it's pretty clear that they wanted this one to be sort of like the last push out the door for everything that they still have kind of in the pipeline for Nintendo Switch 1. So there are some things, but I'm just going to kind of fly through this and give a little blurb for each announcement. And then Matt, like I said before, if you want to jump in on any particular one, I can kind of expand a little bit. But for the purposes of brevity here for the recording, we'll just kind of kick it off here with Dragon Quest 1 and 2 are getting HD remakes that are coming in this sometime this year. It just said 2025. So it's the same style as the Dragon Quest 3 HD 2D remake that happened. Dragon Quest 1 and 2 are getting the same treatment, the same visual style, and it's going to be in a combo pack for the first 2 games. Then there was an announcement for a game called No Sleep for Kaname Date, which is it's from AI the Somnium Files. So if you're familiar with that series, they're detective JRPG type of game. Sees the protagonist of the first AI searching for a missing character named Iris. And also he has an AI embedded in his eye that is his sort of detective buddy for the purposes of solving these cases. After that, there was an announcement for Raido Remastered, The Mystery of the Soulless Army, also coming to actually it's coming to Switch June 19th of this year, so it's not too far off. It's a mixture of devil summoning and action RPG combat. So you're kind of running around in a 3D world, doing combat with your character, but then you also summon like creatures and allies to help you fight and solve puzzles and do stuff around a town. Art style looks pretty cool for that one. And then what was kind of the funniest take on an IP I think I've seen for a game in a long time, the game Shadow Labyrinth is kind of it's Bandai Namco's more grimdark take on a Pac-Man themed Metroidvania type of game. Comes out July 18th this year, and you are like a hooded character who is running around like I said before, very Metroidvania style. There's platforming, there's action combat, and you have this Pac-Man style orb creature following around after you that helps you with different tasks, and then you can kind of combine with it to form into a mecha that is like being piloted by a giant robotic Pac-Man. So it's certainly an interesting concept. I'm actually keen to see some more gameplay for that leading up to its release. After that was a reveal for a remake of the original Patapon 1 and 2 games. That's coming. That combo pack is coming to Nintendo Switch July 11th, and it has lots of new gameplay features. It's if you're familiar with the original games, the different buttons correspond to different kind of onomatopoeias or words referring to sound effects. And you kind of it's a rhythm game, but different combinations of different rhythms translate to controls for this little army that you're kind of controlling. So you can tell them to advance or defend or go full attack or go all ranged. And it's a 2D kind of side-scrolling game with a really charming art style. So fans of the original Patapon series will be able to play it on new or modern hardware, I should say. After that was Story of Seasons Grand Bazaar's reveal. So it's obviously the newest entry in the infamous farming life sim series. Classic formula, you go to a new town, you're set to revitalize it, make friends with the townsfolk, build up relationships, potentially get married, take parts in mini games, and grow your farm and support the town. And you've got lots of fun little side objectives to do along the way. And it's got a release date of August 27th this year.
I got a question, actually. This is just sort of like a little off topic, but a little off topic. I know that Harvest Moon came before Stardew Valley.
Yep.
But did Stardew Valley revitalize this genre almost a bit? Because it feels like, even though this is a return to this series, it just feels like ever since Stardew Valley, everybody's trying to get in on cozy games, unless it's just the cozy game that I originally played. It's probably the first one I ever played.
Did you play Pinata, but maybe. Yeah, I think you could argue that Viva Pinata is a cozy game. I was going to say, did you play Animal Crossing before you played Stardew Valley ever?
Yes.
The Wii?
The Wii, yes.
City
That's
Folk?
right.
Yeah. I don't know. I think it's just that people are recognized how big of an audience non-hardcore gamers comprise of the market now. And so I do agree that it's a bit overwhelming that there's so many of these same kind of farming sim games that are advertised as cute, cozy, whatever. I think that the air quotes cozy game genre, so to speak, does need to diversify a lot, because I know a number of people that are big fans of those sorts of games, but even they're getting fatigued. You can definitely see when a game is just trying to capitalize on the popularity of the genre, and it's pretty soulless, and it's not really doing anything that other games aren't doing. It's not really trying to push the envelope or anything like that.
Graveyard Keeper comes to mind to something that does kind of push the envelope, because it's like you wouldn't think of being a Gravekeeper as being a cozy game.
But hey, you slap a cute art style on it, and there you go.
Yeah, yeah.
Like that's all it takes sometimes, right?
The one thing that drives me nuts about some of these games too is like, I mean, it's good when you're playing one, but whenever you see one of these games, the first thing comes to mind is I'm like, man, there's going to be like a bunch of like secrets and little things that players are going to be able to do. That's kind of like maybe Easter egg adjacent kind of thing. They like, get more money or do this and that in the game. And it's like, whenever I play one of these, I want to discover all those things. And it's like, there's going to be so many of those in each and every one of these games where it's like, yeah, if you like stand by this tree and click A 17 times, like a bird shows up or something, just like weird shit like that. And even that idea is getting fatigued now. Like if I wanted this, I would just go to play Stardew, because it's, I don't know, the king to me anyway.
It's hard when you have so much invested in one game and then you're like, I just want a taste of something similar, but like from someone else's offering, right? And you're always going to be comparing it. But that's just sort of the nature of the beast, I suppose. But hey, you never, if you don't try playing different games, you'll never have the chance to be surprised by, a game that's kind of pulls something on you. And you're like, you know what? Damn, that was pretty cool. And I didn't necessarily expect that.
Like Viva Pinata, quite literally.
Yeah, exactly. Following that, there was some more, I believe the first actual gameplay trailer for Metroid Prime 4 Beyond, where they showed off where the game is actually going to be taking place, which is on the planet Vuros. Samus in this game, the biggest reveal of this trailer was that she unlocks psychic abilities that can be used for a variety of different gameplay functionalities, all the way from or achieving things like, opening doors and operating mechanisms for puzzles, but also including things like firing a charge beam and then controlling the projectile after you fired it, kind of a la Heavenly Sword, when you would fire your bow on that. Was that a launch PS3 title, I believe? You could fire the bow.
Or close to it with the 6-axis.
And you would use the 6-axis to control the flight path of the arrow. To me, a little bit feels like that gimmick that's fun a couple of times, because it's like, oh, you're using the gyro in the Switch, and then it's like, okay, I don't care now. I just want to, like, it's not faster than just shooting enemies regularly. So I don't know, maybe if they make it that like doing it that way is super powerful and yet you can only do it on a cooldown, then maybe it's like a mechanic that I would interact with more. But no news on that. So again, at the end of it, they reaffirmed the 2025 launch for it, or release, I should say. And then at the end of it, teased Samus in a new suit, which looked very like Iron Man almost inspired to me, with like the nanobots, but no set specific release date for it yet. But
who would have thought this game would have ended up near the end of the Switch's life?
People thought it was going to be on the Wii U.
Like this game is on a rough run.
It's been back and forth, and it's a shame too, because I think Prime is the most popular Metroid series. I might be wrong. I'm sort of Metroid fan adjacent, so
it's definitely the one I hear the most about.
Yeah, people love Metroid Prime 1. They did the remaster on the Switch, and I think it sold pretty well. They were trying to generate some hype, obviously, keep Prime in people's top of mind. 4 is coming, but we just don't know when. My guess would be sometime holiday, probably October, November, possibly even early December. But so they're still trying to mix up the formula with Metroid a little bit. And then there was speaking of cozy games, there was a trailer for a game called Disney Villains Cursed Cafe, where you operate, the counter for a cafe. You're making different drinks for different, very popular Disney characters, from, Ursula to Gaston or Cruella de Vil. And it's in a pretty cool, like, hand-drawn art style, I would say. It's very visual novel-esque, so, don't expect big flashy visuals, but you can't expect the art style there to be classic Disney. And then it's all about, interacting with these Disney villains and sort of seeing the dynamics that go on there when you have these characters interact that don't do so in their source material, right? All the storylines that can unfold from that.
This reminds me of, I remember I had someone told me they played it too. I can't remember what it was called, but it was a game where you like followed like Jiminy Cricket around various like Disney worlds, and you like, for example, I remember the one mission where Captain Hook is shooting at you with cannonballs from his ship, and you use like it's like the Wonderful Book or something like that, and you use the cover of the book and you like angle it with the mouse and you move around with the mouse and you kind of like pong it back at him and you try to like destroy his ship. And there was a bunch of levels you go through like different, I don't know if it was all Peter Pan or I don't remember what Jiminy Cricket's from. No, actually, in fact,
he's from Pinocchio.
Yeah, and you do. I remember there's like a part where you go through like the Alice in Wonderland maze, and you have to like shoot at the like the card guards or whatever they're called, and they like come at you and stuff. And there's I don't know. There's a bunch of stuff. Like this is just a big like almost like a fever dream in my head, but I know for sure I can remember what the disc looked like. It was kind of like a blue wisp of like stars or something like that.
I looked it up. Apparently, there is a game from 1999 called Disney's Villain's Revenge.
Oh, I'm looking this up right now. Oh, yeah.
Where he helped the player save stories from villains. So I imagine that's probably what it is.
That's it. Oh, yeah. Hell yeah.
Originally, I was only getting results for Kingdom Hearts, where he was a character. And there's a whole bunch of Reddit threads about Jiminy Cricket being in the game and people discussing lore implications with Jiminy Cricket in Kingdom Hearts, which is like perfect summation of Kingdom Hearts for me, knowing very, very little about it. Yeah. And then again, speaking of like cozy games, but ones that will, add something new to the, genre, so to speak, having some sort of quirk or difference. The long-awaited Witchbrook is confirmed to be coming to Nintendo Switch this holiday, 2025, which is a pixel art style game that includes spellcrafting and witchery. It's a bit of a life sim being developed by Chucklefish, which showed off lots of new gameplay. There's co-op functionality as well, so you can fly around the town on your broom with your friends. I think it's up to 4 people, and you are a student at a witch academy, where I assume you're going to be going through the processes of, going to classes, completing assignments, doing tests and puzzles and things, and then otherwise just existing in this little town and going to cafes and flying around and watching the sunset and all this good stuff with your friends. So seen a number of people very excited about Witchbrook. Additionally, there was also a little gameplay trailer for a game called The Eternal Life of Goldman, which is very, very reminiscent of games like Cuphead, where they've got that classic hand-drawn animated art style, side-scroller, action platformer, shooter game, where you are just quite literally an old man, just this old guy with a cane, and you can customize different parts of the cane to give your cane different abilities and functionality in your adventure. You love to see a little bit of representation for the old white men that want to be a main character in a video game, I suppose. After that was an announcement for Gradius Origins, which is a collection of the first 3 Gradius games. I saw some people a little bit disappointed that it didn't include Gradius 4 and 5. But it's releasing the first 3 games for the 40th anniversary of the original Gradius, which I haven't played a lot of like shoot 'em up type games. But Gradius is one of the ones that I have played, and like far and away probably my favorite of that genre. But again, like I said, not a huge consumer of those types of titles. But Gradius is just good. It's just good fun. And this
is the first I've actually heard of Gradius. I've never heard of Gradius before.
If you've seen like gameplay footage as like B-roll in some people's like, video game YouTube essays, you've probably seen Gradius. It's just like side scrolling. You're a spaceship. You're shooting other spaceships and blowing up aliens and enemies and stuff, and doing boss fights and going through levels of different paths. And it's just a fun little arcadey shoot 'em up. That collection of those games comes out August 7th of this year. The team that brought you Crypt of the Necrodancer is actually coming out with a new title called The Rift of the Necrodancer, which is going to continue that same theme of the rhythm game battle system games. There's also a DLC right away for Celeste, if you're a fan of that platformer, and they have plans to add more, which will add more music, more characters from other indie games as well. So, and I believe that is available now. So if you were a fan of Crypt of the Necrodancer, you can pick up Rift of the Necrodancer right away.
Love a good shadow drop.
Yeah, exactly. The thing that kind of surprised me, this is like not really related to the game so much, but there was a new entry into the Tamagotchi Connections series called Tamagotchi Plaza, which is a game where you and your friends can basically hang out together doing different activities in a little sort of town plaza area. There's different shops, there's little mini games you can play, and it's just, some classic Tamagotchi character, cute fun. It was not until I watched the Nintendo Direct that day that I learned that it is pronounced Tamagotchi and not Tamagotchi.
I was going to actually ask you if that's the proper, like, which one's right. Yeah.
My entire life, I always called it Tamagotchi. And then it wasn't until I heard the voiceover in this trailer calling it Tamagotchi that I learned the error of my ways. So apologies to all of the Tamagotchi fans that I have bastardized your favorite series name. I have had a severe and continuous lapse in my judgment. And
jeez.
Where's my ukulele that I can film a YouTube apology video?
Oh my god.
So that's coming out June 27th. So Tamagotchi fans, rejoice. There was a gameplay reveal trailer for, overview trailer, because we've already had a reveal, for Pokemon Legends Z, Alpha? I don't know what they're calling it. The new Pokemon game. The one that takes place in and around Lumiose City. They showed off some more like story elements of it. They also showed how Pokemon will appear around the city. So they're not just going to be in like grassy areas and environments, but they can be on rooftops. They can be in back alleys, other parts of the city as well. And we also got a little bit of a teaser for the ZA or Alpha Royale, which is the tournament that's held in the city at nighttime, where trainers will battle for a wish granted. And that takes place, obviously, like I said, after dark, and the city kind of goes under a bit of a transformation, not just visually, but functionally as well. So a little more news for Pokemon there. Again, no release date announced for that. And then in kind of a surprise announcement, fans of the Rhythm Heaven series are getting a new entry called Rhythm Heaven Groove on the Switch, which is the classic, series of different challenges and rhythm game activities with the fantastic varying art styles that the games are known for. It's very iconic for Rhythm Heaven. That title, Rhythm Heaven Groove, is coming out sometime next year in 2026. So just a little bit of a teaser for that one for now. So hopefully we'll see more on that in the future. Just to continue flying through the game announcements, and then we'll get to some of the other things afterwards. They also showed off a short trailer for a title called Fantasy Life I, The Girl Who Steals Time. It's the official release date trailer. Not much to go over there. The art style is very interesting and endearing. In terms of gameplay, it seems like you sort of fly between different islands. You can customize your character. I'm trying to think of something that I could compare this art style to. It's chibi. The characters have gigantic heads. It looks like sort of your classic high fantasy. You can go into dungeons. You can have different sort of equipment that you use for combat, whether it's like spells or like swords and sorcery kind of thing. You can do terraforming. There's online multiplayer that you can play with your friends. And there's different ways to kind of progress through the main story as well. So you can go with the combat route, which is where if you play as a mercenary, a hunter, a paladin, or a magician. You can advance through the story with combat. You can take the gathering route, where if you play as a woodcutter, farmer, angler, or miner, you can just gather resources or farm and do things like that. You can also craft with the different professions: tailor, artist, blacksmith, cook, alchemist, and carpenter, which obviously is pretty self-explanatory for each of those. And largely kind of go around to different islands and travel through time. And kind of an interesting idea that like you can advance with combat or other things too. You don't necessarily have to, so you can kind of play through the game the way you want to. So kind of a cool concept. That one's coming out May 21st, so not too far away. They did have a quick little rapid fire section where they showed off some games that are coming out, just offering release dates for them. So High on Life is coming out May 6th. Star Overdrive is coming April 10th. The Wandering Village, July 17th. King of Meat is it has a 2025 release date, release window, I guess I should say. Lou's Lagoon Summer also sometime in 2025. And then Fantasy Life I again in May 21st. They also showed off Saga Frontier 2. So in the Saga series, it's getting an updated look at Saga Frontier 2 Remastered, which is the original story, some new events that'll expand on the story, and it's staying very faithful to its classic, almost watercolor art style with kind of pixel characters on top of it. So for those who are fans of the Saga series, look forward to be playable on Nintendo Switch today. You can download it now. The thing that kind of caught my attention the most visually is the Monument Valley games. So 1 and 2 are coming to Switch April 15th, 2025. And additionally, Monument Valley 3 is coming to Switch sometime this summer. But it is an isometric kind of like platformer puzzle game that just like watching the trailer is a trip. I feel like I would have to watch it through a couple of times to really understand what's going on in some of these levels. But it is like, it reminds me of Fez in that like the puzzles are very like, there's clearly mechanics in each level, but it's also a visual spectacle as well. That one's probably got my vote for like the game that I'm gonna pick up first, I would have to say.
I remember these games being shown off at friggin' I think they were on like House of Cards or something on iPad. There was like a couple of Netflix shows, I think, that like had these. I'm pretty sure.
Jeez.
Like, I'm almost certain because I remember there was like a scene where there's like a kid that's like, oh, what are you doing? And it's like, oh, I'm playing this, and it's like Monument Valley. What?
I always have to have the kid in the background in a show playing a video game, but it's like they're clearly just watching gameplay and they're just like moving the controller around or the tablet or whatever.
I love it when it's the wrong controller.
Yeah. That's
like,
what I was going to
or
like
Xbox,
really old too. Like they have like a PS2 controller in like 2020. Yeah. Because it's just what they had lying around on the set. Yeah. For the fans of the Everybody's Golf series, which has always been a fan favorite for that wacky sort of golf sim, but also kind of mini game, goofy type sim game. Everybody's Golf Hot Shots is coming out 2025, but we don't have a release date beyond that. Marvel Cosmic Invasion is the arcade style, side scrolling beat 'em up type game with classic Marvel characters. It's being made by the same team that did TMNT Shredder's Revenge. So for the fans of that game, which I think it released to pretty glowing reviews.
That game's awesome. Yeah, that game is fucking awesome.
Now we've got a Marvel one to contend with as well. So solo gameplay or up to 4 people local co-op, and that's coming out this holiday as well. And they kind of ended off the game showcases with a little teaser for a sequel that I think a lot of people are going to be excited about. Tomodachi Life, Living the Dream. And for those that aren't familiar with the Tomodachi Life series, it was series. It's like it's just the one game. Tomodachi Life on the 3DS is quite possibly one of the most ridiculous games that I think Nintendo has ever made. And that's a pretty high bar, but it's genuinely, you can add your own Mii characters, your friends' Mii characters, or like custom made characters that people make on the internet, to an island, and you basically are just kind of like running a reality show for them. So you do all these different kinds of challenges. The more things you do, the more like gameplay progress you make, the more features of the island you unlock, and you can put them into new ridiculous scenarios. It's the first new entry in the Tomodachi Life series in over 10 years, apparently. So the little write-up that IGN has here for it says that it'll see various Tomodachi living life out at sea, getting married, dancing, fighting, smelling flowers, and generally hanging out, plus a weird dream sequence, in which they sort of show a Tomodachi character in the foreground waving at a character far off in the background who appears to be smaller because she's further away, and as she runs forward, she gets bigger and bigger and bigger until you realize she's about 25 feet tall and kind of bends down to greet the character in the foreground. It's just goofy. It's one of those games that, like, I think it came out towards the 3DS one specifically, came out towards kind of the end of the 3DS's life cycle, but there was just endless like meme content made from Tomodachi Life. Like, you look up Tomodachi Life anything on YouTube and it's just the most ridiculous stuff that I can't believe is like in an official Nintendo game. It's just such a surreal experience, and I fully recommend it to anybody that's even semi-curious. But it's just like, it's kind of like playing The Sims except with more like preset situations, I would say. You are God and you are running the show, and all the characters have to deal with whatever you choose to subject them to. But aside from the games, there were kind of two semi-big like Nintendo Switch functionality announcements, utility type announcements. So the one for the Switch specifically is what they're calling the virtual game card. And what this is essentially, Cole's notes, is it's game sharing between devices. So in the same way that, if you have if you buy digital games on a Microsoft, Xbox, or a PlayStation console, if you log into your account on other consoles, you can play those games wherever you are. In classic Nintendo fashion, it's a little more restrictive than that. But basically the purpose of it is that if you buy a game virtually on a console, you can share that game to your friend's console or another, family member's console one at a time. So you can't share the same game to multiple consoles at the same time, but you can share a digital, basically like pass to another console so that they can play that game for up to 14 days, which is kind of an odd amount of time. But additionally, if you are in a Nintendo account family group, you can do a similar thing, but you can gift one game to one individual person for the same amount of time, interchangeably. So if, say, you have 3 or 4 digital games that you have on your Switch, you can give one of them to one person, another one to another person, another one to another person. And then again, they all return to the original Switch after 14 days. You can obviously like return them faster if you want to. When you pair the two Switches together, those two, if they each have like different virtual games, like digital games download onto them, they sort of have like 2 libraries, so to speak, that you can mix and match what's available on what console. So it's like, it's weirdly limiting. It's a feature that pretty well every other console already has, and that like if you just sign into your account on a different console, you just have access to the games that you've bought on your account. So of course Nintendo had to be a little jankier with it, but I mean, I guess it's better than not having it. But I think some people are looking at it like Nintendo has sort of caught up to game sharing in 2025 to an extent. Like I've said, I would rather have it than not have it. I feel like it could be a little more lax, but this is Nintendo we're talking about. So,
I mean, this is like cool for like families. If there's like, if you had 4 kids and it's like, you bought, I don't know, Skyrim on Switch or something digitally, it's like, it'd be kind of crazy to buy Skyrim 4 times for all 4 of your kids.
Yeah. If they all have their own Switch, that's like, you don't want to necessarily buy it all if they're all going to want to play it at the same time. that's the other thing, right? Is like you cannot share a copy of a game to multiple people at the same time, so you couldn't have them all play it individually at the same time on their own Switch, or obviously like for multiplayer purposes, you can't have two people playing multiplayer with each other on their own Switches at the same time. You'd have to buy 2 copies of the game that way. But I guess it's their way of sort of translating. They open up their little teaser or like their little info video for it by saying like, if you have this Mario game on cartridge, you can just pop it into your Switch system and play it there. And then if you have Zelda, you can pop it into this Switch over here and you can play it there. And then if you wanted to swap, you could just take the cartridge out of those systems, give it to the other person, and then pop them in the Switch and you can play them there. And they're like, why can't virtual be like that? And it's like, well, it is. And Steam has done it for years at this point.
Yeah, really though.
So, digital game sharing, digital game library, access on different devices is not a new concept, but it's new to Nintendo. And I'm honestly kind of surprised that they adopted it this quickly. But yeah, so that's the thing that's coming. It's coming in a just a Switch software update that is planned for sometime, I believe, mid to late April. So you'll be able to do that, take advantage of this functionality fairly soon, like within a month. So that's kind of nice for those that will make use of that. And then the other one, just to briefly touch on, was the Nintendo has launched an official news app called Nintendo Today that went live on the day of the Direct. But just yesterday, they dropped their first big piece of news on it, which is the release date for the Legend of Zelda live action movie, which is set to hit theaters March 26th of 2027. So we are, at this point, basically 2 full years away from this movie coming out. But as soon as I saw that they kind of showed off, they had a thing with Shigeru Miyamoto showing off how this app has like functionality of it and stuff. As soon as I saw this, I was like, they're going to put like pretty big news things on this app. And it's like, it's a news app, but it's also like just like a Nintendo, I don't even know what to call it. Like I've downloaded it and it's got different like themes. There's lots of little animated sort of parts to this app where it's like you open it up and it tells you the date and you've got different Nintendo characters like popping along your screen and like dragging the date onto it and saying like, what things are happening when, or like pulling up relevant calendar stuff. And if there's a big announcement to come up, then they like highlight it and things. It's cute. It's charming. They've done an interesting job with it. It's like information delivery, but in a very Nintendo way. And they kind of frame it in the way that like, oh, we have these Nintendo Directs for when we have like a bunch of announcements to make all at the same time. But when we want to just have like an official Nintendo announcement on its own and just have it accessible, then it's going to be like on this official Nintendo app. And so, of course, I see this and I'm like, every journalist now is like, God damn it, I got to download another freaking news app onto my phone to be able to keep up specifically with just Nintendo. But if you're a Nintendo fan and you want to keep up with like all things first party information Nintendo, you can download this app and it's got like, they have like Pikmin. They're called like motion comics on there right now is like one of the things. So there's like a little Pikmin story that's like a very loosely animated kind of graphic novel type thing. And it's just like short little, 25-second clips to like tell a cute little story. So yeah, that's live now. You can download Nintendo today if you so desire. But yeah, the biggest first major announcement that they've dropped on this app is the release date for the Legend of Zelda live action movie, which again is March 26th, 2027. And man, we know nothing about that movie either. Like we don't know the cast, we don't know anything about the plot. We don't like it's all speculation.
Jake Gyllenhaal as Link.
Yeah, we'll call him Jink. Probably not though. It's pretty bad. But yeah, so no new news on the Legend of Zelda movie except for when it's releasing, which is kind of funny. Normally you see like teasers and stuff that's like content about a movie or like a cast reveal or something, and they hide the release date. But for whatever reason, they're doing it reverse, where they're saying, "Hey, this movie's 2 years out. That's all we got for you." So I don't know. They're really giving themselves a lot of time to build up hype for the Zelda movie. But that was the Nintendo Direct for March of 2025, and we've got one coming up again for Nintendo Switch 2 very soon. So that'll probably be covered in the next episode of the podcast.
I did want to say one thing about Nintendo today. Meaning the app is I do like that Nintendo like is trying out like phones and stuff like that and different things. So specifically, like obviously they've tried games in the past for a number of years on mobile, but they recently had that physical clock with like that event. Like I think it's like a wake up clock
The
thing.
Alarmo.
Yeah, they had a subscription fee or something. But like I do like that they experiment. But then it's weird that they experiment and then they fall behind in other like kind of key areas. It's kind of weird.
Yeah,
Like the whole like virtual game card thing. But I mean, I'm down with them experimenting. It's just I think there is absolutely an intrinsic value, a very like measurable value that say like Microsoft has by having Windows around, because they understand like infrastructure and they know like, hey, people want to be able to download and they want people to be able to sync, and you want people, you know what I mean? Just like stuff that's like accounts are accounts. They live in the cloud, so cloud connects to everything. This is how we kind of connect the dots. Meanwhile, Nintendo is just sort of like, yeah, it's connected to the cloud, but only via one device. It's like, wait, what's going on here?
It almost feels like they're taking inspiration from other people, but they're just doing things as if they're like advancing only within their own bubble. It's like, yeah, compared to other Nintendo features and technologies, like this is great. It's also a 10-year-old quality of life feature that every other, company has had this whole time. So it's like you're behind the game, yes, but it's relative to other Nintendo stuff. It's a development, sure, yeah.
Yeah. Like you and I were talking, like thankfully these days are gone, but it's like my original Wii U broke just due to a software bug. Like it locked the OS, and it's like, all right, that's it. And when I called them, I was like, hey, like I can't sign into my account. They're like, oh yeah, it's tied to that hardware. You're gonna have to make a new account. It's like, what? What do you mean? So like Nintendo just has a dead account likely still active. It's like, and they're paying for that indefinitely to store that, unless they delete it after a certain amount of activity or inactivity. But like, they still had to pay for that.
Well, you also had like purchases associated with that account too, and it's like, what's the status of those?
Buy it again, like Adriano, like he had like 3 Wii's break, and he had to just gotta buy virtual console, retro game again, retro game again. Oh, Wii broke, gotta get another one.
Like that's just,
what are you doing?
This is a problem that has been solved. We don't need to reinvent the wheel here.
Like copy your competitor for once. In the most boring like spreadsheet way, by being like, what infrastructure do they use?
Yeah.
What's their UX?
Yeah.
I did want to actually have a question for you. I do have a question for you regarding the Switch 1 and the Switch 2. So we've had this debate a lot, meaning like Aaron, Ryan, and I, where the PS4 really held on and arguably is still holding on right now. And like, games. I mean, largely they're just releasing on PS5 and now, but that just started, and we kind of had
insane because we're kind of at like the end of the PS5's life cycle,
which is what like some of us have argued. Like we're like, yeah, like Aaron has said it a few times, is where it's like, hey, like I would like to see what the PS5 is capable of. I don't want like the sort of like little caveat that this game is also on the PS4 in some capacity and possibly held back, some of the graphics or something. And I've like even said when I was using the PS5 for the first couple of years, I was like, I kind of regret buying this. I had to because my PS4 was dying. Like it was totally toast. But it's weird that it was like I was just playing PS4 games for the most part, or ports to PS5 at the most for like the first 2 years. And it's like people are investing in your hardware. Like I'm not trying to make it like a moral thing, but it's also a big question. It's like, next time PlayStation comes out with something, I'm going to be like, should I wait? And like, I think it's a good question. Like if you're budget conscious at all, it's like I'm playing Fallout 76 occasionally. It's like, that's still PS4. And I appreciate that can play on the PS5, but I feel like the PS4 should not be like a requirement when a new game is developed. And requirement, I mean like Sony's not forcing it. It's like, the devs are trying to do it, because Ryan's argument always is, well, there's X amount of like however many million PS4s. I was like, yeah, but there's so many million PS2s. And the PS2 basically was just like cut off when the PS3 came out. It was like some games came out for the PS2, but it certainly wasn't, like it wasn't the PS2 was really kicking around a bunch.
The PS2 was still having titles developed for it up to 2014, I think.
Some sports titles, right? But nothing like mainline. Like it felt like mainline was like, oh, PS3 and Xbox 360, we're over there now,
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. I was just poking fun at the example chosen. But I to this day still kind of maintain that the best game that really showed off the PS5 was the launch title that was Demon's Souls, the remake. Like that game, it feels to me like a PS5 game. Like it's showing off what the PS5 is capable of, the faster load times with the SSD and the, higher frame rates, the higher fidelity graphics, more particle effects going on the screen at the same time without a loss in frame rate. It looks and it plays fantastically, and it's only playable on PS5, so it was like dedicated, made for that hardware, and it feels like it. I agree. Like I have a number of titles on my PS5. I would say the majority that are either like playable on both PS4 and PS5, or they're just straight up like like they were released for PS4 and 5, or they're just like a PS4 game that I'm still playing on the PS5. And it does raise the question, like, was this worth buying? They definitely did not invest in their library for the PS5 in the same way that they did for the PS4. And from a consumer standpoint, it's like, if you're the kind of person that wants to, like, theoretically play your games in the best way they can be on available hardware from first party, then yeah, I guess you would get a PS5. But if you only really care at the end of the day about just like being able to play the game in a playable way, and you don't necessarily care about the highest frame rates and the best, potential for rendering graphics and stuff, you might be a little conflicted. And I don't think that it's a stretch to say that the vast majority of the market for console gaming is not at a hardcore or even like higher end of an enthusiast level. I think the majority of console gaming is a fairly casual experience.
Yeah. So
yeah, I think that I am in the camp of people who probably didn't need to buy a PS5. Could have just stuck with the PS4 Pro even. I mean, mine kind of similarly to you, like mine kind of started to conk out at the end, but it was the first time I'd ever bought a refurbished used console for like a home console. And that PS4 Pro unfortunately started having some various hardware issues. So it was just good timing for me as well to sort of replace it with the PS5. But I also don't do the vast majority of my gaming on console. So
yeah, like you're mostly PC. But like, since you have a PS5, you would think that most of your titles would be like, the big PS5 games, and it just doesn't feel like a lot of them are PS5 exclusive. Like I'm sure, like, if someone's listening to this, they're like, here's this laundry list of them. But it's not as clear cut of a generation. Like the PS3 to the PS4, like I've already mentioned the PS2 to the one, but like, or PS2 to PS3. But when you go PS3 to PS4, like PS3 was dropped. Like the PS3 was like, okay, later, man. And then like it was gone. Yes, there's some examples of stuff coming out on PS3, of course. But it's just a weird time for that, especially when, like you said, the PS5 might be kind of like on its way out. And I'm like, have we seen the PS5? Like what the PS5 is like truly capable of? I don't know if that's true. I don't know if we've seen that. Because also games are taking fucking forever to make now.
Yeah.
They're costing a lot of money, and it's like
years.
Yeah. So it's like, what are we going to have? Like 3 definitive games for the PS5,
Yeah. Yeah. I was going to say, funnily enough, is that really, and we could have a whole probably podcast topic around this, but like, is that more the fault of the hardware and the first party developers, or is it kind of on the game devs?
Well, they're likely looking at like, hey, I do want to tap into that huge amount of PS4s. And so I get it, especially when games take forever to make and all that. Like we just mentioned, they're super expensive to make. They're like, hey, I want my game everywhere. Hence is why PlayStation's publishing on PC as well as PS. And then also Xbox is like, fuck it. We're going everywhere. Like we want our titles to be playable everywhere because we need, the money back because these games are costing, 100 million plus to make
regularly. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Regularly.
Yeah.
Games that aren't really pushing the envelope much further than, like, let's say it's the number 2 in a series that's taking, 200 million, but yet the first one was like 50 million and the first to second doesn't feel like a huge jump. We're in a weird time, but you're right. Like this is almost like a whole podcast episode. It's a weird timeline to be in, gaming timeline, I guess.
I think you kind of hit the majority of it with the comment saying like, because games take so long, we're already through the life cycle of a console by the time they come out, and you're like hoping to take advantage of that hardware, right? That's not to say that games aren't always constantly being made. You're going to have some pretty major releases like every year.
Of course. That's
always the case because things are staggered releases in different companies and blah, blah, blah. But yeah, like any major project or something that first party or like huge developer, like a huge studio at the AAA or even the quadruple A level. Yeah, like 6, 7, 8, 9 years to develop is a huge ask, and technology advances exponentially in the course of 9 years. Is the game you're working on even going to be anything similar to what your original vision for it was, even technologically speaking? Like, it's just such an insane amount of time to ask fans to wait for a title. Of course, people will be happy to have it in their hands when they can, but it's like you might lose, interested parties if you take almost a decade to make a new game.
Well, imagine us from like so I always think of like the 360 is like our golden era of gaming. Whether it's the golden era of gaming for a lot of people, I hear that that's an argument too, but for us it's kind of like the golden era for many people. And I would say that that's my golden era as well. I fall into that camp. And the 360 came out when we were in grade 8. And the 360 lasted until we were late college. If you went to college straight out of high school, like later college, like year 3 or 4, something like that. So maybe you were done college because some college courses are 2 years, whatever.
Yeah.
So like, just think the reason why I bring up that timeline is because like your life is really dictated by school, at least in this jurisdiction, like in Canada here, like your life's really dictated by school, where it's like elementary school, high school, like it's a full-time job realistically, and then go to college. But your life changes a lot in that era, and like the 360 is with you the whole time. Could you imagine a game being like, when you're in grade 7, it gets announced and it doesn't come out until after you're done college and maybe like working and starting your career. And it's like, are you still that gamer? Like so many people complain about 100-hour experiences, and it's like, yeah, like I'm still playing fucking Stalker 2. Like fucking like,
well, yeah, I mean, some people are in that scenario with Elder Scrolls 6. Like, they would have been in elementary school.
Yeah.
When Elder Scrolls 6 was first announced. Now they're through high school and they're out of it, and they're potentially going to college.
That's crazy to think of. And it's like,
yep.
What a crazy marketing idea. Like, I remember when games were like, yo, we're going to make this. And like games that got in trouble were 5 years to develop. Now it's like, no, like, give it 8. Nah, I better give it 15, because we're just talking about it right now. We're going to start development later. It's like, holy cripe.
Yeah, I mean, it's, it's funny, though, is like, if Bethesda didn't, I almost feel like I'd have to ask them. If I ever had a chance to, like, ask any Bethesda employee, I would ask them, like, did the amount of people asking about Elder Scrolls 6 calm down after you announced that it was, like, in development?
Right.
Or is it like more now? Because I feel like everybody was constantly going, when's Elder Scrolls 6? When's Skyrim 2? When's blah, 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 like when next Elder Scrolls? And then they dropped that trailer and people were like, oh my God, they're working on it. Okay, cool. Like, do you have anything to say? And they're like, nah, this is all we have for now. And they're like, okay. And now it feels like it's less frequent that people go, anything Elder Scrolls 6? And they're like, nah, not right now. Okay. Then a couple months pass. Anything Elder Scrolls 6? Nah. Okay. Like, I swear I've seen not nearly as many people talk about it since that teaser compared to before it. But, you have to consider that was 2016,
Something like that.
I think was when 2016, 2017.
It was revealed alongside Fallout 76.
And that was like arguably, I mean, Skyrim came out 2011. So, we're a couple of years, well, we're a good chunk of time after Skyrim has come out. Like, it's still kept alive, obviously, with like DLC and lots of mod stuff, official mod support.
Re-releases as well.
Re-releases, they really capitalized on Skyrim, of course. But at that point, it starts to become what's next for the series, what's next from Bethesda. And of course, that's going to be people like fiending for information.
Of course.
And I think about how long ago that announcement was. Like, I feel like people are just kind of tired of waiting. Like, you leave it for too long, the hype is dead. Like, if you ask me, like, are you going to play Elder Scrolls 6? I'm going to say, of course, I'm going to play Elder Scrolls because it's one of my, it's arguably the series that like jump started my love of high fantasy in the video game space. But if people said, are you excited for Elder Scrolls 6? I'm like, man, at this point, it could release this year, or they could say it's going to come out in 2030, and I would probably have the same level of excitement. Like,
yeah, honestly,
until I see like a fairly significant amount of information about Elder Scrolls 6, I kind of just don't care. To me, it's that perpetual back burner thing. Like, I will not trust it until I see a release date, like,
makes sense. I
or
mean,
kind of anything. Like, even if they've showed gameplay or whatever, it probably wouldn't get me that hyped because I'm just kind of over it. Like, they missed the window.
Yeah, it takes something really special to me now, like whether it's nostalgia, timing, or whatever, to get me really excited about something. And so, like, I'm a huge Fallout fan, and I used to be a huge Elder Scrolls fan, but I really like the freedom aspect. And it's like that itch is scratched by games like Stalker and Fallout. And so it's like that Elder Scrolls thing gets shown off, and it's like, okay, cool. I'm not going to worry about that, kind of like you're saying. I'm not going to worry about that for 8+ years. And now it's been that long. Yeah. And it's like, well, is it another 8? Because if you think about this, which is like, I started feeling really bad after this. Starfield is like approaching 2 years old. Like, it's at the end of this year, I realized, but we're already a quarter into this year. And like, Starfield is approaching 2 years old already. And it's like, man, like that is like the first new IP from them in 20 some odd years, whatever it is. It gets released. It's like Xbox's big game at the time. And that was the interim between the Fallout 76 showcase at E3 and Elder Scrolls 6. Like, it was almost like this big event was like, it's a stopgap.
Yeah. Sorry, the original announcement for Elder Scrolls 6 was June 10th of 2018. It wasn't 2016, it was 2018. However, the post I found online here from 2 months ago on Reddit, today, as of January 8th, when it was posted, the Elder Scrolls 6 teaser on January 8th, 2025, became older than Skyrim was when the teaser was released. 2,404 days.
Holy crap.
So we have now had official knowledge of the development of Elder Scrolls 6 for longer than Skyrim had been out when the teaser was dropped.
What the hell's going on? Like, what the hell? Because, like, here's the thing: is it's like people are still playing Skyrim. Skyrim has been kept alive, like you said, but Skyrim's still an old game. Plays like an old game, has old AI. It's an old game. It's still really good. Here's the thing: like, Skyrim came out 2011, Oblivion came out 2006. And like, you could argue like Fallout, which is 2008, was kind of like Fallout or Elder Scrolls with guns kind of thing. So it's like they were, that was a distraction to them, right? But it's like, even with the distraction, it's under 10 years. Like, what's going on here?
Well under. 5 years. Yeah. 2006 to 2011. Like, 5 years is, I think, a pretty reasonable ask between entries.
For a big epic like RPG, yeah. Oh yeah.
I mean, and obviously these things don't exist in a vacuum. Like, COVID happened. That's a huge blow to game development. Things have obviously kind of equalized in the wake of that now. So you can say probably the development of Elder Scrolls 6 could have been affected by up to maybe even 2 years, I would say, by that. I wonder if they obviously they wanted to work on Starfield and release Starfield, and I wonder if the level of quality that Starfield was when it released, in my eyes, having experienced a number of major releases from Bethesda in the years previous, it just was not up to snuff. And there are people that love Starfield, but I think it's not a sensationalized thing to say that Starfield had a pretty disappointing release.
Yeah.
For the fans, but for Bethesda, and I wonder if they were putting a lot of eggs in this basket and hoping Starfield would be this big breakout success for their first new IP in a long time, and it just wasn't that, and it just wasn't there to what even I as a pretty, not that I'm like a faithful Bethesda fan, but I was a pretty big Bethesda fan for a number of years. It wasn't gripping like so many of their other games have been.
Yes.
And I wonder if they realized that and went, shit, the bar for quality that we said was acceptable for Starfield's release, in the eyes of the market and of fans, it wasn't acceptable.
Yeah.
Like the only reason that as many people played Starfield on release as they did was because I think it was on Game Pass day one.
It was, yep.
Like I would be really interested to see, like, in a survey or whatever, asking people if you couldn't play Starfield for free, would you have bought it? And I would be really interested to see the people that say yes versus no, that would have bought it no matter what. Like they wanted to play Starfield, and versus the people that were like, oh, it's on Game Pass and I have Game Pass, I'll just play it there. It's the only reason I played it.
Yeah,
I wouldn't have paid for that. So anyway, this huge long tangent.
The DLC though. Like they dumped time into the DLC the next year. Yep. Yeah.
So I wonder if they look at that and they go, we had this idea of what we were going to release Elder Scrolls 6 at, this particular level. And they saw Starfield and they went, okay, it's not good enough. We have to make Elder Scrolls 6 better. And so it's taking longer. I can only hope, like, I don't know if this is just copium, but like, I would love for the reason that Elder Scrolls 6 is taking this long is because they saw, at least in a small way, that they were going to potentially release something kind of at the same level of quality and polish and interactivity and world building and immersion as Starfield, and saw that Starfield kind of wasn't good enough and went back to the drawing board. You
know what? That's a hopeful outlook, one that does actually make sense. And we have no way to, like, it's speculation, obviously. We have no way to prove it.
There's no way to know.
It is something that I hope. That makes a lot of sense. Like because, like, I mean, like, we're going to talk about the Career Corner a little bit here, and it's like there's a Starfield point in here about it lacking in an area, and lacking in an area in comparison to Oblivion, which is like, a big time jump. Yeah,
which is crazy. But I mean, you were talking about Far Cry 2 before, and like no other Far Cry game after 2 had kind of the intelligent systems that it had, right? So
yeah,
it's a matter of focus for different projects.
I guess, like with Far Cry, the details are cool and everything, but I think the issue is, like, I think like a realistic game does worse than an arcadey game. And so, like, if you make an arcadey game that's just like, like super fun or whatever, it's more accessible and it's just like a playground in like a jungle, or, choose your area, the mountains and all that. Whereas like Far Cry 2 is arguably like super cool, but doesn't give you the same like level of detail, I guess. Actually, I think I'll just like transition right into the Career Corner, because this is what it talks about. Because I have another really weird story, but it's just kind of a throwaway, something to do with the Nemesis system, and maybe we'll talk about it next week. It's super bizarre, but the Career Corner this week. I'm going to mention Stalker 2 for a bit in the beginning, but it's not a Stalker 2 Career Corner. So Stalker 2 has been under fire from fans of the series due to lack of its attention to detail, something that was present in older titles in the series. So, for example, the sort of like system that controls the NPCs and the activity in the zone is called A-Life in the Stalker games. And so A-Life in Stalker 2 is lacking. It did release in a broken state to some degree. They have updated it, but it's still not up to par, is what people say. Enemy NPCs don't move as dynamically. Radiant AI behavior, if I know that's a Bethesda term, but Radiant AI behavior is sort of lacking. So I've seen a lot of YouTube shorts where it'll be like a bloodsucker will go over to like a dead flesh and like eat it, even though a player isn't there to like trigger it and things like that.
Yep.
For A-Life, people have talked about how they'll be out in the zone in the older games and they'll run around, and let's say like there's like a scientist and like 2 stalkers, so it's identifiable as like that's the group. They'll just like walk by or whatever, and then you'll see them later like fighting something, or you'll see them back in town, like they'll just be coming back to town and they'll like wander in and you're like, oh shit, like that's that group, or maybe one of them's dead or something and things like that. And that doesn't really exist. Like the A-Life as it exists has been improving in Stalker 2, but it's kind of seems like it's like a bubble around the character. And so like a pair of stalkers or whatever will like walk past, and then once they get far enough away from the character, they just sort of like poof and they disappear. But if you like follow them in the other Stalker games, like I don't know how they were following them, whether the character was or whether like, they consoled and they just use the camera, they would like go and do stuff. And in A-Life, they have improved it in Stalker 2 to like they'll take camps sometimes and things like that. But a lot of these like details are still like lacking. It's sort of like, oh yeah, they'll take camps, but not as well as they used to, and things like that. Now, the whole point of this is not Stalker 2. The whole point of this is details in games. So the reason why I kind of started to split hairs at the end of my Stalker 2 conversation there about taking camps and stuff is because a lot of this stuff, like following the stalkers and like seeing them back in town and stuff, it's cool, but you wouldn't necessarily expect it. And it's like a detail that adds to the facade, but many players won't even necessarily like notice it or see it. So for example,
yeah, it's a background thing.
Yeah, it's a background thing. So like for example, like Oblivion was famous for its radiant AI, meaning like, a shopkeeper would open his shop at 9 a.m. He would leave. Oh, it's Thursday. He goes to the bar. Oh, it's Friday. He closes early. He goes here. Things like that. Like they have a certain thing they eat at this time. They go to bed at this time, things like that. But they also, with that radiant AI, had like other more advanced daily routines. So I watched a YouTuber like follow an NPC, run around from the city, run out into the world and like deliver goods to like some sort of like smuggler out in the woods, and then like come back, and you can time it. So you're like, oh, I think she'll be back every Thursday at 2 or whatever. And if you go to her house every Thursday at 2, she's there. Yeah. And that's like such a, like an extra ask that it's like, I didn't even think that was a thing.
Yeah. I think that particular example was something that players hadn't even realized was in the game until a good number of years later.
Yeah. I can't remember the name of the YouTuber, unfortunately, but like he went through and like did a bunch of those videos of like different little details in games. And then we have Starfield, which is, more powerful. Like it's a more modern game. It has like more planets. It has like, shipbuilder. It has all these special effects and better graphics. But then you go into a town and, that person's not taken off at Thursday on Thursday at 2. That NPC is always there running the shopkeeper, always running the shop 24/7, 365. They're always just sitting there running the shop. And to fill the sort of empty streets, they have sort of throwaway characters like Ubisoft games do, where they just have like throwaway NPCs that just kind of wander around. If you talk to them, they don't really talk to you. They'll just be like, hi there, and things like that. Like really
townsman.
Yeah. Like person from whatever town it is, like things like that.
Yep.
And so the quick corner question today is the weak facade of a game enough? So is a game with lesser details, like those minute things that many players will never see, like that NPC running out to the smuggler and coming back, is that like weaker facade good enough, or is it better? And we can argue what better even means in this context, but is it better to have these cool details that most players will never notice? Because, and I'll just give a quick example, in the Stalker 2 aspect, I played the old Stalkers when I was a kid, maybe like 11, and like I didn't really know what the hell was going on, and I had no idea it was as detailed as it is. Playing Stalker 2, I'm really enjoying it, I love it, but then I see these videos and I'm like, man, I didn't know that the old games did this. So like the facade of the first game was enough, and I never knew those details, and so the facade of the second game, which is weaker, is still enough of a facade where I'm like, Stalker 2 is awesome. And so like that's the question, is like, should games have those like little cool details? Like, is it better to have that, or like, who cares? Like, just facade it. Who cares?
Yeah.
Which one?
I think there's two main things to consider. The first of which, obviously, being like relative to limitations of hardware and limitations of technology at the time, you on one hand, you will have a simpler system where AI is not as robust, but you can do a wider variety of things with it. So using Oblivion as an example, the characters have fairly simple routines, a different schedule depending on the day. It's realistic. It was certainly groundbreaking for the time back in 2006. And it really adds to that immersion, of course. As time goes on and technology develops, you're able to obviously have much more comprehensive AI in your game that can run more, that is operating in a more complicated world, a more mechanically complicated world with potentially more actors in the environment on screen for potential interactions. And the cost of that, of course, being that now you can't have both. You can't have this like super comprehensive AI doing very relatively, I should say, complicated routines because they're already maybe like maxed out, so to speak, because they're more comprehensive. And it's the argument of like, do you want a tiny puddle that's super, super deep, or do you want a lake that's a mile wide, but it's an inch deep?
Right.
And some of that will come down to the way that the developers can execute on their vision, or even what their vision is for the game in the first place. But using Bethesda games as an example, I think the vast majority of people would say that it's cooler to have a more robust system that is deeper for the purposes of developing more organic interactions in a world by having characters that feel like they're more human over having more comprehensive AI that is dealing with a whole lot more factors, but is essentially doing nothing. Like you say, a store vendor that just stands there day in, day out, 24/7, they're always accessible. Or like somebody that operates a bar and all they ever do is like walk around back and forth behind the bar.
yeah. They don't even sleep. Yeah.
Yeah. And, bar patrons that just sit at a table forever and they never leave. That part's realistic. But I think people would say, the majority would say Oblivion had it figured out. The other consideration is when you mentioned playing the first Stalker game when you were a kid and you didn't see all of this stuff that the first game was like, that was even possible, that the first game was even capable of. The facade of the world was enough and you enjoyed it. And then as you got older and you look back at the first game and you're like, man, like there was so much more to it. I can't believe like just that surface level that I saw was like good enough. The age of the consumer or possibly even in so many words, like the naivete of the consumer is a consideration because you ask, 100 different people to all play the same game and you ask them like, what did you like the most out of it? Or what did you dislike the most out of it? They're all going to give you a different answer. Probably you're going to have a pretty big spread of answers because different people have different preferences and different priorities in a game that they go to play. Some people want to optimize the fun out of the game. Some people want to get completely lost in the world. Some people are totally chill, just grabbing a fishing pole and going and fishing in this game that fishing is just one small mechanic in a massive RPG. Different people have different preferences, right? So it's going to, that piece of it is also going to come down to the individual to a certain extent. It's really hard to objectively state what is superior in a game's design when games are inherently a subjective experience.
Right. Okay.
Because games, like any other piece of creative media, are art. And everybody interprets art differently. Everybody values art differently. The kind of gamer that only plays COD and FIFA every year is not going to give a shit about a game like, Yakuza, where it's this like super narrative driven, story oriented, dark criminal underground main narrative with these over the top, ridiculous, goofy, wacky side stories and missions and stuff. Like, it's just not going to, like, they just don't care about it because they only play the games their friends are playing that's topical in the moment or aligns with their other interests, which is already like, watching football or basketball or football or American football, I should say. Yeah, it's really hard to apply like an objectively like this is better than this when it comes to art.
Right. Because I know that it's an interesting take because one of the things that Bethesda games is criticized for, and I've criticized them for in the past, is that their cities don't feel like cities. It feels like 10 buildings, 10 or 12 buildings. But that comes back to that sort of like a shallow lake or like a very deep pond analogy that you mentioned. And it's like something like Megaton from Fallout 3 was very, very dense. It was designed to be dense, though, which was super cool because it was around that bomb.
Yep.
But it was like very, very dense. Whereas I would not have liked for Megaton to be gargantuan and then have just had like, Moira Brown always standing in the same spot and like Moriarty always doing the same thing. And it like the one thing I hate actually in games is when like the shops will close, but if you like hack through the door somehow or like lockpick it, the shopkeeper's still standing at the shop. Things like Jesus, like,
and they don't mind if you're there.
Yeah, because they don't realize. I to be fair, like, and this comes back to your like thing where you're saying it's like up to preference and subjectivity. It's like I'm a big fan of towns in a game. Like it's always like games like you go out in the world and it's usually dangerous, right? A lot of the time, and then you come back and it's like you're supposed to be like, oh my Christ, I made it back here.
Yeah,
and I like the town to feel like a place where it's like I need to just hang out here for a bit. Like that friggin' sucked out there.
A safe space, take a breather.
Yeah, take a breather, hang out, grab more quests, food, sleep, all the rest of it kind of thing. Maybe like buy a house if it's something like Oblivion or something. Decorate that for a bit, stuff like that.
Yep.
Take some time off. But or in Fallout 3 actually. But you're right. Like it's what's interesting. One of the Bethesda mechanics that came to mind was I don't believe that the random encounter mechanic was in Oblivion. The first game that I personally remember it in was Fallout 3. And a casual player or even like a kid would likely not realize that every, enter in amount of seconds here through their journey through the wasteland, that they're being given a 1 out of say 30 pool of events that can happen. Such as one of the more famous ones where it's like a fridge filled with water and a bunch of, NPCs standing around it kind of thing. Whereas like today I'm like, man, like I'm aware that there's random encounters. In Red Dead, I remember talking with Marty way back in the day when it came out, 2018 or whatever. And he was talking about how Rockstar was trying to ensure that something of a number of variety of things, but something would happen every, whatever it was, 30 seconds or 28 seconds or something that they had calculated that they should have happen. And it's like, for many people, like that facade is enough. But then for me, I'm just sort of like, now I'm aware that that's why the stuff's happening. It's like I'm kind of looking into the facade. So you're right. Like it is hard to say if it's better or not. Because if we look at like like I mentioned, like the smaller towns of a Bethesda game, if you take a look at the sprawling cities of Assassin's Creed Odyssey, the size and the detail of the actual structure of the city, the geographic, the architecture, all the rest of it, where like, it's built around the mountain, it's built around the geography, it's a huge temple and you can go way up there and it's like all this crazy stuff. And it's like, that's super, super cool. But I hate the fact that the NPCs and the side quests are super lacking, where it's like, my sheep got lost. Please help find my sheep. It's like, oh my God. Like, you're not even a person. You know what I mean? Like you're not immersive. You're just a fucking person that's going to pay me like $100 or whatever. Which sucks, honestly.
I was just looking it up because you mentioned it. There is apparently only one random encounter in Oblivion, and it's not even truly random. It's Maik the Liar.
Oh yeah. Oh my God.
So he's not necessarily random. It's just that he's an extremely large spread of locations that he goes to, but he always goes to the same locations at the same times of day every like week. And then he just, you talk to him and he just has little dialogues that are references to other Bethesda games as little Easter eggs and stuff. But yeah, like it certainly helps to make a world feel more alive. And like when you mentioned about like, oh, I have randomly decided that I need you to go get my sheep back and I will pay you 100 gold coins to do it. Like that was the like Radiant quest system in Skyrim, where Because, and I thought it was a fairly like novel idea from Bethesda to be like, obviously you reach a point in an RPG where you have done every quest. You've done the main story, you do all the main side content, and now what? Like, do you just wander around the world kind of aimlessly as this like maxed out character? Or do you delete the file and start again? Like, what if we give people like a post, like an end game gameplay loop grind in a single player RPG? And so the rating quest system was kind of a way to do that. It's like there's these minor objectives, these side objectives that will pop up that generally aren't much more than just achieve objective X and return to Y. But it was a way to kind of semi keep the world feeling fairly organic and alive. That, you know, just because the main threat has ended doesn't mean people don't still have like things happening in their lives that they need help with.
Yeah, I don't need a hero anymore. Alduin is dead.
Yeah, but it does kind of ruin the immersion a little bit when it's like, you're that great hero who killed the dragon and then chased him to the afterlife and killed him there too. Can you go pick flowers for me?
Yeah, get my potatoes out of there. Like
are you that strapped for cash as an adventurer that you'll do this for me? Can I have you hang up your sword and helmet for an afternoon? Hopefully your ego is not too inflated. But I guess that's kind of where mods can come in. Because if we're being honest, it's probably enough to play a game for 200 hours like Skyrim and do everything on that character and do all the quest lines, and it's probably enough to have done that. You don't need to keep going in perpetuity.
Yeah, you could shelve it if you want. Like,
yeah.
You've earned that.
In the era of live service games now, I wonder how often people are going to come to expect games to be supported for a really long time. And it's always been the goal for a game from the outset that, we're going to make this game and we got a bit of a roadmap. We're going to do some updates and we're going to do like maybe one big DLC drop in a year or two. And we're going to continue to support the game with patches and updates for maybe a year after that. And then we're kind of done. And we're going to wash our hands of it. And we're going to go on to the next thing. Like, how many people are going to expect, people that maybe like grew up with Fortnite, for example, are going to expect every other like big game they play to be updated in perpetuity for a decade, like Fortnite?
You know what? That's a very good question, because I notice it with software, like just in general software, which is much more mundane than like a game, where it'll just be like, do you use, and OneNote is still supported, but like just as an example, a hypothetical, it's like, what note taking app do you use? It's like, well, I used to use OneNote, but like I'm not going to use OneNote anymore because it's not supported. And it's like, it's like people kind of expect the updates now, which is kind of crazy. Like sometimes it's like, man, like that's a completed product, like especially with a game, an older game. It's like, hey, like, version 1.2 is it? Like that thing is done. Like, Skyrim or whatever is complete. You've done it. There's not going to be an update for it. And that is a bit of a foreign concept these days, for sure. Because it's partially because like obviously games as a service, and also because it's so easy to push out updates now and get that little bit extra sales. It's like, ooh, we'll add like federal fishing to Skyrim, and then we'll push out another edition, and that won't be part of Game Pass, but they can upgrade from it, so we'll get a couple hundred sales or whatever it is, right? They know the numbers. To bring it back, I guess, to the facade thing, I would say that as a general rule of thumb for me, if your facade is good enough, then I'm good with that. And I would prefer to have a deeper pond, I would say. That's my preference.
Yeah.
But it's like in the case of Stalker 2, it's like I'm still having a ton of fun. I'm still running around. Sometimes it's like, okay, like it's one too many gunfights have broken out in the woods. It's like, is this a metropolis or is this a fucking wasteland? Like, how many factions are finding each other out here, and having a gunfight? There's a few of those moments, but it's like there's always going to be that thing in a game kind of thing, because it is a game. It's simulated.
The point of the game is to be fun, right?
Yeah. So it's like you're supposed to have a gunfight. Well, usually it happens. Usually the reason why I roll my eyes when it happens sometimes is usually because I don't drop things, so I'm just over encumbered as fuck, and I'm trying to get back to town, walking super slow. And I'm like, please don't shoot at me. Please shoot at each other, not at me. But no, like I get it. It's like I get the frustration of the people that loved the details of like an Oblivion or the older Stalkers or all the other stuff. But I totally get that the facade of something like an AC Odyssey, where I think the facade's actually a bit too thin. But I get that it's like good enough for most people that like I agree with you. It's like it is very subjective. It's hard to say like what's better and what isn't.
Yeah, it's just going to come down to what's relevant to the audience, right? Like different people play different games for different reasons. And just kind of like put a cap on the thought is like we mentioned just now, like the point of a game is to have fun. If you truly wanted to play a game like Stalker 2, where you're in this like immersive wasteland where you hardly ever see another person, some people are going to want that experience. Like some people are going to want this like almost milsim level. I'm in a alternate timeline scenario where this is like hyper, irradiated Russia, and there's mutants everywhere, or there's mutants around, and I'm walking across this like actually literally empty expanse of wilderness with the occasional scary encounter. But when we say it's a video game, like that is probably not exciting to the vast majority of the audience that wants to play the game.
Right.
Like, yeah, there's going to be that market for people who want that like really raw simulation experience, but it's probably not the majority. And then that just comes down to like, okay, so which games are going to give me the experience that I want? And then choosing to like support those games, of course. So, it's always going to be subjective because there are always going to be the people that you can appease with your game release and those that you can't. And you are always going to hear about it from both sides every time you release your game. So, you just can't make everybody happy.
You know what game came to mind when you were talking about all that was Yakuza. And the reason why I think that is that like Yakuza 0 is the most like the one I played the most. And what's interesting is like you're mentioning like kind of like the military like simulator kind of like spec, I guess, of like Stalker 2. And then some people want that, love that, and they want those details and everything. But then there's going to be the other people that are like, I just want the like wasteland experience. I want the more arcadey feel, whatever. It's like if you looked at Yakuza, it's like if Yakuza released a game that was like super gritty and like super like mega violent and like really realistic, and it was every NPC in any of the streets that they're in, because they go to different districts of the cities. But it like was like you could talk to them and stuff. And then they decided to go to Yakuza 0 as an example. It's like Yakuza 0. It's like the people are just kind of wandering around. It's a more arcadey game. You're running around. You're beating people up. You're doing your thing. But that game's fun as hell. Mm-hmm. And it's like you would have those people that complain that would say like Yakuza used to be this gritty, super serious experience, and it had all this detail, and now it's just this. And like, meanwhile, it's like someone like me, I'd be like, Yakuza 0 is pretty fucking good though.
Yeah, literally that. And I think that there is valid frustration in when a game series like kind of carves out its niche, and then further on in the series, it becomes a little more broad appeal to be more palatable for a wider audience. There is valid frustration there in being like, the reason that I liked the series and supported the series was because it was different. And now it's kind of becoming a little watered down, a little muddied. And, because of like wanting to capitalize on broader appeal. And that kind of sucks. Like, I wish they had done another thing in the, in the more like carved in niche. But, that's just a symptom of living in a capitalist society is like, unfortunately, these devs a lot of the time are going to chase the money trail. Yeah. People can't. You almost in this scenario can't have it both ways, where you get your super specific niche game that does so astronomically well financially that it warrants making another super niche carved title. It just doesn't work like that. And, if it's between a company releasing a more broad appeal game and it keeps that studio open versus them refusing to do that and sticking by their guns and just sticking to their niche, and then they unfortunately just like shut down because they're not bringing in any money. I bet you would have probably fairly equal sides, people advocating for either.
Yeah, it's kind of like
all subjective.
Yeah, like, well, because I mean, this is like a personal thing, but it's like I didn't really like how the Oblivion system, leveling up system, was kiboshed for the perks, and I thought no one's gonna like this, and then it like really caught on, and I was like, man, like this is just to make it more accessible. Like this kind of sucks. But then like I think it might have been because also it's new and I don't like change. But then like when it came around on Fallout, I was like, you know what? Yeah, I don't really want to be fucking around with all these stupid like meters and stuff. Like, yeah, I'll just level up my special and have my perks. And it's like you kind of come around to it. But it is like a system shock a bit, like you said, where it's like something establishes itself in a certain way. Like I'm sure the older Elder Scrolls people, which like are likely fewer in number when gaming was more new, back in like Daggerfall and stuff, when it was trying to accomplish the same thing as like a D&D tabletop game, right? But just digitally, they're probably like to the chagrin of like, why is Morrowind so small? You know, like why is Morrowind's map so small? Like we used to have a map that was the size of like the UK, of mainland UK or whatever. Now it's like this, you know, this tiny mountain, and you're just like wandering around this mountain. These towns are small. Meanwhile, like someone like me as a kid, when I booted it up, I was like, whoa, this world's really big.
Yeah, like one of my favorite things to see is when somebody plays like a new game or an update comes out or a new system or something where it's like that system shock, like you say, and they hate it. They're so critical of it, and they're you know, they're saying this and that and this was better before and blah blah blah, and I hate this, and this, you know, company's going down the toilet, and you know, massive L, you know, boycott the company. And then they give it a couple of months or a couple of years, and they kind of go back and they do a retrospective, and then they're like, you know what? On second thought, after this time and giving myself more chance to think about it, actually wasn't that bad. Because it's like, I love it, but I also hate it because you can always count on it happening time after time after time after time. And not to get like too deep into it, but just to sort of like, as an example to the point, it happens every time whenever a new Monster Hunter game comes out. You always get the people you get a lot of people who joined the series from just the previous game. So for like this example, we could say people who played Rise that now play World, and they're complaining about it being different. There's a lot of people that didn't play Rise because it was kind of like overshadowed by the success of World. There's a lot of people that join with World, and then they're criticizing. They absolutely criticize Rise, and they're criticizing Wilds. But it's just like, it's like a more, you know, bite-sized version of the human experience where you do all this shit as a kid, and then you get a little bit older, and you're like, oh my god, like I was so naive. It's like, it's a good thing that like people are smarter now, and then you know, we won't make these same mistakes. And then you get a little bit older, and you're an adult, and then you see kids doing the same thing you were doing, and you're going, oh goddamn kids. Like, you know, blah, blah, blah. And you remember being a kid and thinking, oh, adults are always so like critical of us. They don't know what we're thinking. You know, they're all boomers. Blah, 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 they don't understand. And then people become like older, like, you know, later in life, and then elderly and stuff. And then they're looking at kids again, and they're like, man, like the world's changed so much. Like I just don't understand kids anymore. You know, when you get to be like about 35 or so. And
today, yeah.
And it's just like, that's the human experience, is everybody goes through that, gets old and has the same experience, but everybody thinks that they're the first time they're experiencing that when you're like younger, and it's not until you get older that you're like, god damn, I was just like everybody else. And right. It's like the older people that were telling me, you know, that they had the same experience, that they realized that they only understood this once they got older. And it's just like, it just, you know, time is not a circle, but it does rhyme. And it's like, with each time these like new games come out, the people are always like so knee-jerk reacting, comparing what they know or are most familiar with to this new thing that does something differently, or it does something maybe in like a less intuitive way, or it's just different. And like, this is fucking trash, this is garbage, the series is dead, like I'm just gonna go back and play this game. And it's funny because you can go back in like these really old threads from like when Monster Hunter Freedom Unite or whatever was like the popular game. And then Tri comes out on the Wii, and everyone's like, "Fuck this underwater combat garbage!" Like the camera controls are ass. And it's like the camera controls were always ass in Monster Hunter, but it's like these environments suck, and the monsters aren't as cool. And it's just like it's the same shit 20 years later. Like it just never changes, and it's like it's funny because you see it just like happening over and over again, but it's also just sad and frustrating that like people don't get it. Like every time you have somebody who will finally realize that the more things change, the more they stay the same, there's new people that are coming in and they're just like starting the whole process all over again. It's like, man, I just wish we could have this like collective understanding that like, hey, we've already been through all this. We already had this whole fucking, back and forth, and we've all come to an understanding, and now you're bringing in the fucking rage and energy again. It's like, why couldn't you just come into this knowing what we already know? But anyway,
you're sparking it up again.
Yeah, and then it just the wheel continues to turn.
It reminds me of the time I think Ryan was telling me that like the same thing, but he was talking about just sort of like real life, and he was saying he found a TV ad or something like that talking about how magazines were like stealing people's lives away, and how like like all they do now is they go to work and they come home and then they sit there and they look at their magazines. Now it's like, it used to be like, people are sitting on their computers. What are we going to do? And then it was like, people are on these goddamn telephones, like these friggin' smartphones. What are we going to do? It's like, probably nothing.
Yeah.
Wait for the next thing. Wait for the tablet plus.
There's a great picture online that's a compilation of a bunch of newspaper clippings from like the 1900s and then like the 1910s. And the 20s and 30s and 40s and 50s and 60s and 70s, like through all the decades. And the one commonality that all of these clippings have is the phrase, nobody wants to work anymore. Every single one of these newspaper clippings says blah, 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 blah. Nobody wants to work anymore. They just want to blah, blah, blah. And it's just so fascinating how they have this base claim, and then they just use whatever is relevant at the time as the justification for it. And it just has never changed. And I was in a Tim Hortons like last week or something, and I was just waiting for my food, and there was a couple of people sitting at a table in the dining area, and like I thought that I was on like a prank show, because just kind of out of nowhere, the one person is like, nobody wants to work anymore. They all just want to sit at home and do nothing. And I was like, I kind of perked up and I was like, did I actually just hear that unironically in the wild in real life from just like a random stranger, like they were an Oblivion NPC? And the funniest thing was what happened immediately next was their daughter or some younger woman that was with them immediately goes, I want to work. I want to get a job. And they just kind of go, oh, well, I didn't mean you.
Just everybody, every other person.
Yeah,
in this Tim Hortons.
Isn't it wild how when you understand a person's situation and scenario and life experiences, you have a little bit more empathy for them than just the nebulous other that's out there. Oh, everybody else. I didn't mean you. I meant everybody else doesn't want to do anything. It's like, the connection it's almost there. You're so close to getting it. It's quite literally right in front of you, and you're still missing it.
They're reading too many of those newspaper articles.
My experience is unique, and it's everyone else that's different.
I will say that I have heard like people argue too. They'll be like, well, all you do is sit around all day and like you're just like hitting buttons on a keyboard. And I was like, you use your tablet and shit at night. Who do you think makes that stuff? Like iCloud didn't just come about. Like, do you know how to like, wire up the server array and get the frickin' all the like data center management shit that goes into that and all that? It's like, no. It's like, oh, so, but we're supposed to do that on the side, and then I'm supposed to go shovel gravel to make you happy. Like, sorry, man, I'm not shoveling gravel. I'm doing something else. Like, what's going on here? It's like, yeah, I don't want to give up my iPad. Come on now.
This query corner has just become like rant corner, but
rant corner.
It's okay. I'm all for it. It's like, and I remember when I was younger and I would talk about like watching YouTube and stuff and watching people play games. People would be like, why would you ever want to like sit and watch someone else play a game? Like, why wouldn't you just play the game? And I was like, why do you watch basketball?
Yeah.
You're sitting there watching someone else play the game. Why not play? Well, it's different because they're playing at a very high level. Exactly. It's exactly the same thing. It is not different. And it's much better than, my team is losing, so I'm going to throw a beer can at my TV out of rage and go, punch drywall. I think I would prefer to just sit and watch some funny ha-has about a video game on the internet.
I'll watch part 2 where he succeeds when he failed in part 1. Yeah.
Oh, the clickbait, the cliffhanger ending. God. Anyway, speaking about ending, we should probably wrap this up.
That's correct. Yes. So that concludes the Query Corner. Wrap her up with the old what we're playing. Tim, what have you been playing? Or what have you been watching, I guess? You mentioned YouTube. What have you been watching?
What have I been watching? I've been watching WoW Classic hardcore content, which is like potentially kind of coming to an end. There was a whole thing about the big content guild kind of coming to an end because WoW, a bunch of Blizzard stuff got DDoSed over the weekend. And a lot of people in that content guild died in a raid and lost their characters. And it's like the one time that Blizzard actually put out a statement and they're like, because of these like unprecedented circumstances, we are considering bringing people's characters back because it like kind of wasn't their fault. Like they got the servers got targeted and we totally fucking dropped the ball on our security. So
yeah,
we might bring these people back that got affected by it. As far as I'm aware, that's still up in the air. But
well, what sucks is I was gonna say if you're getting DDoS real bad for like 3 hours, it's like it'd be easy to quote unquote easy to revert 3 hours. The longer you wait, now it's like other people have like spun up new characters, they've done a bunch of things, and then it's like, man, the more you wait, if you revert, like I understand they're not actually reverting, they're probably just bringing people's characters back, but it's like if you were to revert back then, it would have just been like, hey guys, we're fucked, we got hacked or whatever, we got to go back. Now it's like you can't do that, right?
Yeah, you can't. So it'll be an individual like person basis, I assume. But so like you say, you got to be quick about it because I know a number of the content creators that kind of have moved on, right? They're kind of done with WoW Classic stuff for now. So we'll see where that ends up over the next couple of weeks, maybe. But in terms of playing, like I have still been playing Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 post the barber mode patch is what they call it because they added the barber to the second game so you could change Henry's hair and beard style. They added official mod support and they've tried to do a bunch of like content patches and fixes and stuff. It's been fun. I'm just very slowly meandering my way through the story in that one. Monster Hunter I kind of slowed down on, but the first title update is coming out on April 4th. It's coming out next Friday, so they're dropping a couple of new monsters. One's going to be in an event quest that comes out like mid-April, I think, April 16th or something. And they're adding lots of multiplayer stuff. So like the Gathering Hub is finally being added to the game.
Oh, that'd be nice.
Yeah, and it's got like, the standard stuff you would expect from a Monster Hunter hub, and they've added a couple of things you can do as mini games. So that's all coming out that I'll be getting back into Monster Hunter definitely next week. And that's pretty much it. I mean, we've been playing Orcs Must Die on Game Pass together.
Quite a lot actually. We've made some good progress.
It's had a good content update with new, more compact maps. They've added new kind of orc. They've added new traps, another playable character. That game is really, really good for something to just kind of like chip away at. I really enjoy having that sort of satisfying gameplay loop of like doing the tower defense, the hero style tower defense, where you have your abilities and you just want to try to get as many like combos, multipliers as high as you can with making these like kill boxes. The only thing that I would like kind of want for that game now, I think, is like more of the corruption, like more variety of the corruption, where it kind of prevents you from building in certain areas to kind of force you to interact with more of the rest of the map. Because for me, in my personal experience playing, like when I'm soloing stuff, I just always default to the same builds in the same parts of the map every time, because it's just like, it has worked objectively really well in the past, so why wouldn't I just do it again? And then it makes the game feel really samey really quick. So I would appreciate a little more like just like, roguelike-y kind of stuff. More variety that way. So we'll see. But I mean, the game's still in its infancy, so we'll see where it what other things they're cooking up, because I've really enjoyed everything that they've done so far. So that's pretty much it. Those three.
Well, in that vein, I was going to mention they added the smaller maps, and I estimate that they're going to add more fast things that make the smaller maps really like threatening. So like the modifier on like the card when you select the map. Because I know there's like the kobolds and things like that. Flyers are a bit of a speed thing, because it's like, Jesus, they're over my wall, and you have to run them back and forth.
Take a straight line, yeah.
But it's like, I feel like they're going to add more speed things where it's like, all monsters are 200% faster or whatever. All orcs are 200% faster. It's like, oh shit. So you have to like really actually have a proper kill box. Because I know we can go up in difficulty, but we were kicking ass.
Yeah.
And I feel like even if we weren't kicking ass on the higher difficulty, I mean, we should try it, but even if we weren't kicking ass, we would be doing pretty good. And I wouldn't be surprised if those smaller maps are like the introduction to like, these are going to be our speed maps, where like if you have kobolds and all these other things we add, that's going to be like freaking dangerous.
The funny thing about increasing the difficulty, I don't really know because we haven't experimented with it too much, but even if it just increases it by like they do a little bit more damage and they have more health, it would probably make it easier to get higher combos, because if they have more health, that means they take longer to kill, which means they have more time to be hit by more different traps, which means they get bigger combat multipliers, which means you get more coin out of each individual orc, which means you can make more traps to deal with the harder orcs. And then it's just this like perfect loop.
Yeah, it's a fair point.
So
there's got to be something that hits the wallet too, maybe, or something.
Yeah. More of those modifiers for like the debuffs on each level as you keep going through a run. I would like to see more of those too.
Yeah, that would
just
be
something
nice.
that changes up the game dynamic in an interesting way.
Well, I did like how the corruption went into that one area on like I forget what that map is called. What's that? The one with the library in the back where we routed them all the way back and then up the big staircase?
Yeah, it's like the patio garden or something like that.
Yeah, and it's like, I liked how we had like sort of an area we used to always do. We showed up and we're like, it's all corrupted. So we had to change everything. Like it was a big change that we did. We've never routed them through the back, and that was super cool.
Yep. Yeah. So more of that, like kind of even scattering the corruption, because they kind of did it in like big chunks, different areas, just to be like, okay, you just straight up cannot use any part of this area. You got to like work around it or go to a different side of the map or whatever. But it would kind of be interesting to like kind of almost like kind of shotgun spray it in like little smaller parts across the map, where it's like, okay, like you can use most of this area, but you have to do it differently.
Right.
And just that sort of thing. Because then you really randomize like what potential builds people could do.
One thing that would be really cool too is if it's like some pathing stuff. So if it's like, oh, if the orcs walk over corruption, they get like a buff that's like really dangerous. So like maybe like you need some walls that aren't a part of your maze. Yeah. Like try to get them to go around it or something.
Man, I don't know. The devs of Orcs Must Die, I hope you're listening. These are some money making ideas. These are
some doozies.
not to toot my own horn, but get on it. But yeah.
As for my stuff, you were done, right? I didn't want to cut you off. Okay, cool. As for myself, I've obviously been playing Orcs Must Die Death Trap as well with Tim and Ryan, and we're doing it on stream and off stream as well. So that's been fun. We've completed like the last boss or whatever, like the last like boss run or whatever. And now we're just kind of like doing the new update and going through different runs and trying the new maps. Other than that, though, I have had a couple of pretty good. I hate saying this. Couple pretty good stalker sessions. You know, my neighbor's starting to really get scared. No.
Oh God.
Yeah, I hate, because I don't like to say it. I'm doing a couple stalker sessions. A couple of Stalker 2, the video game sessions.
I'm getting my stalk on. Getting really good at it.
But no, I was spending a lot of time in the zone, and it's been really great. I've been doing a side quest for 3 full sessions, and I decided to like, there's a choice, and one of the choices will end the quest right away, and I didn't like that choice because I think the one guy's a dick, and I didn't want to side with him. So I decided, I was like, I'm going with this other guy, and of course he radios me, and he's like, hey man, he's like, I got a reward for you, but I'll call you later when you can come pick it up. And I'm like, you live in the fucking cliffs. You're so far away from where I'm supposed to be right now. So I was like, okay, I'm going to wander around the zone. Found a couple areas to wander, hoping he would call me. Found just like a bunch of stuff, like a couple of side quests, had a big fight. all kinds of cool stuff. Got a couple of artifacts and stuff. I got a new gun. I got a bunch of money and all this shit. And I was like, Jesus, like this guy never called me. So I was like, I'm going to Rostock. Like I'm getting the hell out of here. So I went up there, went to Rostock, learned the hard way that like I had found a stash without it being marked on my map before. And then I found the PDA that tells you where the stash is. So I went back there and went in there, and it had a scripted event where a bunch of fucking rats came and tried to kill me, but there was nothing in the stash because I already took it. So I was like, fucking stalker. Like, of course, fuck me over like this. But there was a real tragic tale at the end. So usually what I like to do when I end my session is I like to get some like go and empty all the stuff I don't need into my stash, sell my stuff, keep some food on me, go to sleep, eat, and then save. So when I play next, I'm just off to the races right away. I can leave, choose whatever I want to do. And this time I went to the armor person, and I've been really hankering for an exoskeleton. I've never had an exoskeleton before. I think they were in the other game, but I never got far enough as a kid. So I was like looking, and they had a fucking exoskeleton, and I was like, holy fuck. So I was like, okay, I need money. Like I need coupons. So I've been like hoarding stuff. So I go in my thing and I get rid of all my doubles, and I'm getting rid of like artifacts I don't need and stuff. And I go and I sell it all. And I get my suit, and I'm like configuring because I got an extra slot in for artifacts. So I'm like configuring my build, and I'm all like happy and everything. And then I go to walk toward my bed, and I realize I'm like, that was kind of weird. Like I can only walk. And I was like, well, I was walking pretty quick. Like, I don't know, maybe something buggered up. So I restart the game after I saved, and I was like, I still only walk. Like, what the hell's going on? And then I go look it up, and somebody's like, yo, man, you got to upgrade it with like hydraulic whatever so you could sprint. So I was like, oh, okay, like no big deal. So I go upgrade it, and the tech at Rostock can't do it. So it's like, God damn it. So I go look it up, and it's like, oh yeah, you got to approach Pripyat. And I was like, it's the one area of the map I haven't been because everyone keeps telling me to go down south of these damn cliffs, do all these other missions. So now I got a suit that I spent like all my damn money on that needs to be upgraded. And the worst part is, and I know exactly what's going to happen. The Red Forest and then Pripyat and stuff is like late game. Guarantee it's hard. I've never been in there. Guarantee it's hard though. And I bet you I'm going to find a damn exoskeleton in there. Like I kind of jumped the gun because I was excited. I was like, man, I'll do this. Sure. Guarantee you I'm going to go in there and find a damn exoskeleton armor. And it's probably going to be better than what I got because I bought a base one. And it's going to be like, well, all right. And that'll be that. So yeah, I'm heading to Yaniv, I think, which I think is before Pripyat. And there's multiple towns before Pripyat, so I don't know whether I'll find them. But anyway, I don't know what to do now. Don't know whether to wear my suit because it's way better and I can't sprint, or whether I should wear my regular armor and be more open to attack and then go into the harder area. I'm scared. Stalker 2. I did have a text thread actually with Ryan because I entered the Red Forest for the first time, I think last week. And I took a picture of the Red Forest because I'd like talked to him about it prior. And I was like, here we go. And he's like, what is that? And I was like, that's the Red Forest because it's all red and all shitty. And I literally just entered, and he had texted me a question about it, and I was like, I'm dead. And I was fucking dead. Like some creep came out of the woods and fucking put me down. And I was like, place sucks.
I feel like if you're ever comfortable in Stalker, you're playing it wrong.
Yeah, actually, it's scary. Like game's scary sometimes. And what's hilarious though is I've gained like zone survival like a little bit. So I walked into an area and I kind of just looked around. I was like, there's gonna be a fucking bloodsucker here. And I heard some like scurrying. I was like, there's gonna be a fucking bloodsucker in here. So I got my shotgun ready. And immediately when the bloodsuckers see you, they roar and you kind of like lose control and you kind of get like, shell shock. And so I was like, oh fuck. And I knew exactly what to do. This like, I have a clip of it. I just pull my shotgun out. I'm ready. Run to this door frame. Cause I'm like, this motherfucker's gonna have to run at me. And I just like look with my light. And I'm like, there he is. Bang, 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 bang. And killed two of them. And I was like, oh yeah. I'm like, I'm used to living in the zone now. Like before it would have been like, I'm down on the ground, I'm getting beat up. I got a load to save. So yeah, I'm having a great time with it. Gonna start pushing the story though. I think there's a lot of stuff to still explore, but I'm just kind of in the same map area and I don't want to get bored. And I do want to see like Pripyat and stuff. So I want to push into that area and see it. So I'm gonna do a bit of a push, and I can always go back and do side stuff. But I've been doing side stuff, so not like I've been slacking. So
getting your money's worth.
Yeah, for sure. And then one random side thing in Need for Speed Most Wanted 310 on the PSP, I beat the time trial that I couldn't beat as a kid. Surpassed it in my Chevy Cobalt, my 2003 Chevy Cobalt. Maybe 2005 something, but anyway, yeah. So, yeah, that's where I'm at in there too. But that's it. That has been my week.
Yeah, pretty packed.
Yeah,
gonna have some stuff for next week too. So
I hope the update for Monster Hunter is good, because I wouldn't mind beating that story and kind of getting through that too, stuff like that. So we got I mean, there's been, for us talking earlier about how games take forever to come out, a lot of games on the ticket right now. Big ones too.
That's sort of how you have to do it, right? Like, but similarly to how people used to be able to just like get a job right out of high school or without even going to high school and just have a career for 45 years. Now we have to, you kind of have to be like in your career kind of bouncing back and forth between companies, like to get a promotion and stuff. A lot of time people are going to pay raise. People need to like kind of always keep other companies on their radar. It's the same with games. You used to be able to just buy one game and play it forever. And now everybody's kind of perpetually playing at least 3 or 4 or 5 different games all at the same time, because you're just sort of playing one thing when the new content comes out. And then when that kind of gets old, you go to a different thing, and then you exhaust that content, and then you go to a different thing, and then you go back to the first thing because there's new content again. And yeah, it's this weird world, like you say, of live service games becoming a lot more the norm. And and of course we're also at the point where we have like some disposable income that we can fund like playing multiple games at the same time, whereas like kids can't necessarily buy or get like a full price new game every 2 weeks or month or whatever, right? So yeah, no, for sure, because I remember when I got a game, it was like I played that fucking game when I was a kid. That's the game you played for me for months. Like I would, if I wanted to play new games, I had to go to a friend's house and play what games they had. Like, yeah. I cut some mad grass to get some gaming. Spending cash. Yeah, exactly. Although I entrepreneured it at one point where I somehow got it so like 4 or 5 of my neighbors were on board, and so I could buy a full price game every week because I had enough income. I had like $80 a week, and I was like, I was like literally a kid, like grade 8 or grade 9 or maybe or something, and I was like. Get that rotation going of cutting lawns, and by the time you finished the 5th lawn, the first one was long enough again that you could cut it, and then the cycle continues. A venture capitalist, the mowing simulator. Yeah. You do what you got to do, right? For your hobbies. Yeah. Yeah. Fantastic. Well, it seems like the next episode of the podcast is also going to be a pretty loaded one with a bunch of stuff dropping in the next week. So be sure to tune into that one as well. Heck yeah. Hopefully it won't be as long as this one, ideally, but yeah, keep it locked. Yeah. Day One Patch Podcast. Guest hosted by Matt Lawrence today. Oh, you pushed me right at the end. What? What do you mean? I'm the esteemed guest now. No, the temporary host. The temporary relief trailer park supervisor. Assistant to the trailer park manager. Yeah. Yeah, I still got a promotion. I have to jump trailer parks to get it. Oh, yep. That lateral move. Yeah. Where can the good folks find you, Tim, on the interwebs? On the interwebs, there's a couple of places, I suppose, but the one I spend the most time is twitch.tv/thesidetrack, where, like I said, we've been doing some Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. Big fan of the RPGs. I will be doing some more Monster Hunter stuff on stream in the coming weeks, of course, with the title update, and I've been doing a multiplayer mod with a friend as well, so we might be getting back into that on early next week. So if modding some single player games for multiplayer shenanigans sounds like a good time to you, feel free to stop on by, and otherwise a lot of Kingdom Come and Monster Hunter stuff. So yeah, it's been good. Heck yeah. And you can find us, all 3 of us, or all 2 of us that are here, and then the third that's not here, I guess, Ryan. You can find all 3 of us at twitch.tv/DayOnePatchMedia, where we stream on Wednesdays at like 8, 9-ish at Eastern Toronto time. And then Ryan's been trying to stream from Mac. It's off and on because it's weird streaming from Mac, I guess. And I don't know much about Macs, but he's been having some technical difficulties. But he may be doing some AC shadows. We'll see. But we'll see you next week on this show, and see you on Wednesdays on the stream. And that's it. Thanks for listening.
Peace.